right, sound is good. I see y'all in the chat saying everything is clear, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If there's any issues at any time, just let me know in the chat. We're going to go ahead and get Blog Talk in, and once Blog Talk comes in, we'll get started.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
How do we know this is Babylon? Psalms 137. I'm going to read it. This place was known for the slave ships, boats. The children of Israel were singing songs and being whipped and beaten in this particular land. So, let me read. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. Yeah. We hanged our hearts upon the willows in the midst thereof. Willows are willow trees. Where the willow trees grow? Here in America, in the South. They didn't even grow in ancient Babylon. The willow tree's name in the Latin is the Babylonicus. We hanged our hearts upon the willows in the midst thereof. So when we were whipped and beat, we used to go under the willow trees and cry during slavery. Third verse. For there they that carried us away, captives, required of us a song. So this is talking about by the rivers of Babylon now. They required of us a song. That's where you get your Negro spirituals at. Okay? When the captives were enslaved during the time of slavery, they wasn't singing about Africa. The slaves were singing about Zion. Over the river Jordan, let my people go. These people knew that they were the children of Israel. For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song. And they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. That's Negro spirituals. 4. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? What strange land? By the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, they named it America, but the Most High called this land an extension of Babylon. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? It reads in the 4th verse. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. So David said, listen, he would rather not even know anything to forget the ease of Israel. He told the Most High, please never let me forget that we're Israel, that I'm from Zion. And our people don't even care. The 7th verse. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Edom is a pure blood Caucasian who was behind bringing us here to Babylon to serve. You will never find the word America in the Bible, but you know America is written because it's the most evil and wicked empire in all existence. So you mean to tell me the Most High wrote about Egypt, Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, and all the evils placed in the earth, but forgot America? America is Babylon the Great. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall utterly be burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. The Most High has put his spirit on these other countries to take her out through war. And all the other nations know it. The government know it. The bank systems, they realize that they know prophecy. So what they're doing, they're mobilizing to move their money into the other countries, over in Europe and Africa and all these other places you see Barack Obama going. He's been to Ghana twice already, knowing that this place is about to go. The 9th verse. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So while they're teaching you prosperity, then everything is going to be all right. But you're going to be floated up into a cloud, which is nowhere in the scriptures before Christ come back. While they teaching you all this madness in these philosophical schools they call churches, the Most High's prophecies are coming to pass. They're coming to pass before our eyes. You can see it, and you know it's going to happen. But Satan have what you would call a spell on the people through religion. So the Most High have awakened his elect in the last days to warn the people. Zechariah, the 2nd chapter in your Bible, the 5th verse. For I saith the Lord, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of it. Ho, ho. Come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord. We didn't say this, the Lord said this. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heaven, saith the Lord. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth with the daughter of Babylon. So is this ancient Babylon? No. This is the modern day daughter of ancient Babylon. And we're in the north. The Most High say we must flee her before the destruction comes. If we don't flee her, we'll get the plagues that are coming. In Revelation 18, where it says she shall be utterly burned with fire. The 8th verse. Okay? There's more, but if you want to know more, you can always go to our website.
Shabbat Shalom, Barakatham, Watawada, peaceful Sabbath. Bless you all, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Friday Night Sabbath, coming out of Babylon, here for the Gathering of Christ Church. I'm your host, Brother Elder Ramar Karab. It is 7:11 p.m. Central Standard Time, May 29th, 2020. We are streaming live from Babylon, live in the belly of the beast. And it's good to be here for another broadcast. I want to give all praises to the Most High Ahaya in the name of his son Christ Yeshua for being here for this broadcast. And also, as we are going into the Sabbath, the 7th-day Sabbath, it's a blessing to be here to see another Sabbath day, another day of rest from servile work. And rest from the weariness of this world, especially with the times and conditions that we are living in and faced with in this current day and age. I hope you brothers and sisters out there are doing well and are blessed. I've had a great week with so many challenges and obstacles and tribulation, all those things that we're faced with every day, every second, every moment. It's a blessing to be able to endure through those things, to be here. And another day to fight for righteousness, another day to fight for truth. So hope you all are doing well. And have a lot of information to go through tonight, and hopefully we can get through it in a timely fashion. I just want to say, if it's not already clear to brothers and sisters, time is short. Time is very, very short. When you read in Matthew chapter 24, one of the signs of the end that Christ prophesied and told the disciples would be that the Most High God would shorten the days, or else no flesh would be saved. Right? But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So every day it seems like time is going by faster and faster. You look up and you just trying to figure out where the time went, and the days are just becoming blurred. At least from my experience, that's what's happening and what's going on. Maybe brothers and sisters out there, maybe that's not the way it is for you there. But on my side, there's a lot of work on the plate right now. We weren't able to do a broadcast last Friday night. And I know a lot of people were asking me, where was the broadcast? Why no broadcast? And as of right now, probably going to be looking to scale back a little bit and maybe do a broadcast every other week. And not that there's not a lot of information to cover. There's a lot of information that needs to be covered. But like I said, time is of the essence, and there's a lot of work to do. The harvest is plenteous, and the laborers are few. So there are many works when it comes to this ministry. Being here to bring forth the broadcast is just one of many works, and there's a lot of people out here that need a lot of help. There's a lot of brothers and sisters in the body that need help, and with that comes a lot of time that's dedicated to helping those. For some people may find it hard to understand. You may want to have a broadcast every week. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd do a broadcast every day. But we have to be realistic with the times that we're in. All the changes and things that are happening. They shorten the window as far as times that you can be in these stores and operate and do certain things. So it makes it a lot more difficult to get things done. And with that and all the other work, it just limits the ability that we have to, at least myself, to be here present before you all and do a broadcast. But if there is any, pertinent information that comes out through the week, and it's an off week, then I'll do my best to come on for 30 minutes to an hour just to kind of bring out whatever major news that comes out. But I would just tell brothers and sisters that being that the harvest is plenteous and the laborers are few, that you have to also find out what your work is. What ministry, if you don't already know, does the Most High have you in? Okay, because when you're busy doing the work, sometimes it's hard to keep up a broadcast. I know with me, it's hard to keep up with all the lessons with so much work going on. And so if it's a situation where, Elder Ricard, the elders don't come on for a broadcast, it's nice to be able to have it there to watch it. But being so busy working and things like that, I may not even have time to really just watch it the way that I would like to watch it with full attention to it. So, I would just, challenge brothers and sisters to, put your hand to the plow, find out what your ministry is, find out what your works are, and get those works in while you can. Time is short, and time is running out for you to get your works in. All right. And faith without works is dead. So it's important that we know what our works are, and we're putting our hand to the plow, doing those works, linking in with your local body. This technology is great. It served its purpose, but this technology is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end really, really soon. And I'm going to talk more about that later at the end of this broadcast. We did a broadcast titled, They Are Censoring the Truth. With the censorship and everything that's going on, with the truth coming out and them trying to stop it from coming out. So there's going to come a point in time to where these broadcasts are going to be no more. And we can't be so dependent upon virtual broadcasts to where it takes us out of our natural element. When you look at the patriarchs, you look at Christ, the disciples, they didn't have technology. They didn't have these platforms to be able to use these venues to bring forth information. And I think sometimes we can kind of get dependent upon it and get comfortable and get cozy in our seats, in our chairs, knowing that this isn't necessarily the way that we should be coming together. We should be coming together, in person, face to face. And in this event, they've actually made a concerted effort through their social engineering to continue to push us into those comfortable spots of, you can't come together, you can't gather, just do everything online, stream online. You see what I'm saying? So social media has already, up until this point, been a huge catalyst in that conditioning process of social engineering us into this technology, into this virtual way of life and this artificial reality. But then with COVID, it's actually even pushed that bar to higher levels with having everything being done through the internet and working at home and all of these things. But there's going to come a time where this is not going to be here. So we have to already get ourselves prepared and ready for that day when these broadcasts are no more. Or if a broadcast is only 30 minutes or only an hour, or maybe there's no broadcast at all. We have to get ourselves prepared and ready and utilize that time. If there is no broadcast, or if the broadcast is short, we have to utilize that time in an efficient manner to serve and bring forth the works of the Most High. So I hope you brothers and sisters out there, understand and hear what's being brought out right now. And but like I said, all in all, it's because of you brothers and sisters. There is a broadcast, of course, the Most High first and foremost, but you brothers and sisters always, come and, ask for the show and all of those things. And, it definitely keeps me motivated to keep bringing forth the broadcast. And before we get started tonight, though, don't know what's going on with YouTube right now, but things seem a little weird. I'm just going to refresh something here real quick. Hopefully this doesn't mess things up. Just bear with me. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Before we get started, you all already know the routine. Hit that like button. Let's spread the word. Let's get the word out through social media, through your different platforms that you can share, email, texting, the ways that you can listen and follow along with this broadcast. We have the GOCC Texas YouTube channel you can go to, or you can type the direct link, youtube.com/GOCC Texas, capital G, capital T, and that'll take you straight to the live feed for this broadcast. If you'd like to listen through your phone, 515-605-9327. That goes to Blog Talk. You can press 1 if you'd like to speak. If you have a question or comment, we'll take your call when we get toward the end of this broadcast. And so that is the different ways that you can listen in. So now let's go into the title of tonight's broadcast. The title for this broadcast is titled Operation Dark Winter and the coming second wave of the SCAMdemic. Say it again. Operation Dark Winter and the coming second wave of the SCAMdemic. What do these things mean? What do these things mean? We're going to talk about all of that and more tonight, if it be the Most High's will. And man, there's so much going on right now. So much going on right now. I'm pretty sure everybody is aware of the civil unrest when it comes to racial tensions with the supposed killings of different individuals here recently. You've had one that happened back in February. I forget the brother's name that was supposed to have been killed by two white men in Georgia for supposedly breaking and entering into their property or someone's property. And then you have the George Floyd situation going on right now, amongst other little instances of black, white, racial tensions going on right now. Police, black, racial tensions going on right now. We're going to talk about that. It's going to tie in to this broadcast, but mainly we're going to talk about Operation Dark Winter and the second wave of the SCAMdemic. Okay. Now, let me bring in Brother Shamna Allah. One moment. Shalom, Brother Shamna Waller. You can hear me?
Can you hear me, Elder?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. How you doing?
Blessed by the best. Most high, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's good to hear. That's good to hear, my brother. Let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew 24, and read from me verse 20.
All right. The book of St. Matthew, chapter 24, verse 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day.
So for, I would say, about a decade now, we've been doing this broadcast, Friday Night Sabbath, coming out of Babylon. And for those that have followed, know very well this is the scripture for the broadcast. This is the main scripture that we use for this broadcast, and it's a very I would say on point scripture when it comes to the information that we're about to bring out tonight. When we talk about Operation Dark Winter and the second wave of the COVID event. Christ said, pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. So we're going to focus mainly on that winter part. And we talked about this last broadcast. Let me pull it up here real quick. Last broadcast, we talked about this man right here. If you brothers and sisters remember, the coronavirus whistleblower, Dr. Rick Bright, the ousted director of a key federal vaccine agency. This man said that he's the one of the head proponents for vaccines. So he supposedly has been ousted from his position because he's so radical about vaccines. Okay? He's so radical. And what he came out and said was, he warned of a dark winter ahead. And we talked about this last broadcast, about how he said that if there's not, this man, Dr. Rick Bright, said if there's not a emphasis put on getting the populations of the world vaccinated, there's going to be a very dark winter, the darkest winter in American history coming this year, if we don't get everybody vaccinated. That was his outcry. And within that, you also had outcries of a second wave, that there was going to be a second wave coming. So just setting the foundation for tonight's broadcast about this dark winter and the second wave of the scamdemic. Now, when you go to Google and you type in COVID second wave, these are some of the stories that come up, just so people understand that this is not something that I came up with or other people that bring forth information, independent information made up. This is actually part of what they're saying. This is their rhetoric. They coined this term second wave. So when you do a search, this is what comes up. ABC News, coronavirus second wave. When and where will there be a second wave? CNET.com, how long will the coronavirus last and will there be a second wave? AMA-ASSN.org. Harvest epidemiologist, beware, COVID-19 second wave. Check this one out. WashingtonPost.com, second wave of coronavirus. Winter outbreak is likely to be more destructive than the first wave. Winter outbreak. Okay. WashingtonPost.com, why a second wave of COVID-19 is already a worry. BBC.com, coronavirus, could there be a second wave? DW.com, coronavirus, when will the second wave of infections hit? So, just so brothers and sisters see, this is mainstream news. This is what these are the seeds that they're planting. So, for me as a watchman, I take heed to these particular things, especially when Christ warned in Matthew 24, verse 20, to pray that our flight be not in the winter. And we've talked about this for years, about not only just on this broadcast, but Gathering of Christ Church, the elders. We've elaborated on this fleeing or taking flight, which means to flee or have to, scramble for your life in the wintertime. So this is the time that the powers that shouldn't be, the rulers of darkness, this is the time that they actually launch a lot of their operations. Hence the term Operation Dark Winter. Okay, because they know people have to be lodged in. Okay, they've managed to keep people lodged in the springtime, beginning of spring. All right, so they can do it in the spring. They're gonna definitely be able to do it in the wintertime. Because nobody likes being outside in the cold for the most part when it's wintertime. All right, much easier to keep you lodged in and lodge down when it's cold outside, when the conditions are harsh. Now, when I type in YouTube COVID second wave in the search, this is what comes up. There's some videos here. So I want to play some of these videos so you can hear from their mouth. Hear from their mouth, and then we're going to break it down. All right, one moment.
This morning, growing fallout from those holiday weekend crowds and serious concern over a fresh wave of coronavirus infections. This as the national death toll approaches a staggering 100,000. USA Today putting a face on the devastating loss. This jam-packed pool party in Missouri prompting health officials in St. Louis County to issue a travel alert and a 14-day self-quarantine order for anyone who was there. Overnight, the owner of the bar where the event took place posting a message to Facebook saying in part that he stands by his decision to host the party and that no laws were broken. That post also referencing an earlier statement from the local sheriff saying it is the right and responsibility of each individual to make decisions about going out. Tyler Cranker was at that party and plans to take a COVID test today.
I don't think personally that I will get really sick. But if I do, I have to live with the consequences of my actions.
Now, with more Americans being tested, the number of new coronavirus cases is climbing in several states. And in Alabama, the situation is getting worse.
80% of our deaths have taken place just in this month alone.
The governor in Arkansas says they're experiencing a dangerous second peak, while in New Rochelle, New York, the first city in the nation to be locked down is now slowly reopening.
You have to start somewhere. Now is the time.
I don't think it's the greatest thing because there's a lot of people that, are sick.
Across the country in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium, up to 6,000 people a day will be tested for the virus. Nearby at a food processing plant, 153 employees have tested positive. But the nation is showing new signs of life. The New York Stock Exchange reopening with a limited number of traders on the floor and new safety restrictions, promising signs of progress amid larger gatherings of concern.
So this is the new normal. Things are slowly starting to open back up. You have people who are, not able to be at max capacity at certain locations, whether it be restaurants, jobs, churches. But you're also getting reports of a second spike. Now that things are opening back up, remember the WHO director said we've driven corona into the homes. Now we must go into the homes to find, who in the homes are infected through their contact tracing and their Trace Act. And now as things start to open back up, they're saying that, we have a spike now. This has been the most deadliest month for corona, or the most cases that we've, been able to test for and say, come up positive through our testing now that we're opening back up. So really, the second wave has already started, at least according to the narrative. It's already started. But it's just the beginning. Like Christ said in Matthew 24, the beginning of the end, but the end is not yet. So this is not the end of the second wave. This is just the very beginning of the second wave. All right, and this is the seeds that they're planting in the minds of people. So when they're ready to get full blown into the second wave, whatever their operations entail with them when it comes to that, you've already been conditioned to accept the conditions under the second wave. Okay, whatever the parameters are for the second wave, you've already been conditioned to accept those parameters based upon the programming that's coming now through media into fear this second wave. Now let's go to the head sorcerer himself, Dr. Fauci, of this this so-called medical expertise or the experts. Let's see what Dr. Fauci has to say here with the video titled "Second Wave Isn't Inevitable If We Do This." All right, let's check this out.
Do you think when folks, members of the public, are being asked to do this, and they look at folks like you doing it, does that encourage its use to a positive degree?
No, it does, Jim. And I mean, I wear it for the reason that I believe it is effective. It's not 100% effective. I mean, it's sort of respect for another person and have that other person respect you. You wear a mask, they wear a mask, you protect each other. I mean, I do it when I'm in the public for the reasons that, A, I want to protect myself and protect others, and also because I want to make it be a symbol for people to see that that's the kind of thing you should be doing. And when I walk around the street in the neighborhood where I live in Washington, D.C., which still has a considerable number of infections, it's very clear that many people are doing that.
It is, and I live here as well, and I see the same thing. Reopening, as we mentioned, as it happens, some people are taking reopening as license to go back to the way it was, right? I mean, to mix closely without wearing a mask. I mean, you saw some of the scenes. I think we could put it up on the screen. Some of the worst examples of this, a pool party there in Missouri. I just wonder, as a doctor with an enormous amount of experience, not just on COVID, but previous outbreaks, what do you say to people who are taking gradual reopening orders as license to just go out there and do it like they used to do it?
Well, what I do, Jim, is I try and encourage them whenever I'm in a public forum like now to really be careful and be prudent about that. I mean, we all want to reopen. Everyone understands that. But when you see some of the scenes that were shown just now, that's very troubling because that's inviting there to be an issue. I mean, we are going to see upticks of cases even under the best of circumstances when you reopen. We know that. That's something you accept, and what we need to do is have the capability of responding in an effective way, of doing the kind of identification, isolation, and contact tracing. But when you have situations in which you see that type of crowding with no masks and people interacting, that's not prudent, and that's inviting a situation that could get out of control. So I keep, when I get an opportunity, to plead with people, understanding you do want to gradually do this, but don't start leapfrogging over some of the recommendations and the guidelines, because that's really tempting fate and asking for trouble.
Yeah. Well, given the uneven availability of testing in many states and communities, do we as a country actually have the ability to get a handle on potential outbreaks that result from reopening, but a handle not only by testing, but also contact tracing, so you could track down the folks who've been infected and others that they might have come in contact with? I mean, should Americans have confidence that the government can really get a handle on these things?
It's getting better and better, Jim. I'm feeling better about it as we go by with the weeks that go by, and we see that we're getting more and more capability of testing. The CDC is putting more of a workforce out there to help us do the kinds of identification, isolation, and contact tracing. I feel better and better that we're capable of doing that. And I often say, we often talk about the possibility of a second wave or of an outbreak when you're reopening. We don't have to accept that as an inevitability, and particularly when people starting thinking about the fall. And I want people to really appreciate that. It could happen, but it is not inevitable. If we do the kinds of things that we're putting in place now, to have the workforce, the system, and the will to do the kinds of things that are the clear and effective identification, isolation, and contact tracing, we can prevent this second wave that we're talking about if we do it correctly.
Have you seen any worrisome signs, data in places that have reopened early, more aggressively, of potential outbreaks as a result of reopening too quickly?
Yeah, I think if you look at some of those areas, you start to see a little bit of an uptick, and those are the things you have to watch really carefully, Jim, because there will be cases when you do that, and that's the thing we need to accept. It's how we respond to it. One of the things that I think the people who are out there frolicking need to realize, that when you do that and you see no negative effect in 1 week. Please don't be overconfident, because the effect of spreading is not going to be seen for 2, 3, and maybe even more weeks. And at that time, you can have the uptick. And that's the reason why we encourage people, as we want people to be able to have the opportunity to reopen, to be prudent and take a careful look at the guidelines and to the best extent possible to follow them.
Okay, vaccines. There have been some positive results from early trials. Always have that caveat there because it is early. Have these early positive results accelerated your best guess as to when a vaccine could be widely available in this country? For instance, before the end of this year. Is that possible?
You know, Jim, it is possible, but when you're dealing with vaccines, you've got to remember that you're dealing with things that have a lot of vicissitudes. There are a lot of landmines and hiccups that occur. But the kind of acceleration that we're doing, which I must emphasize, is not at the expense of safety, nor at the expense of scientific integrity. What we're doing is that we're proceeding what we call at risk. And at risk, Jim, means that you take the next step before you have the results of the previous step. And the next step is an investment in resources, such as making vaccine before you have a clear-cut signal that it works. That means if it does work, you've gained a few months. If it doesn't, you've lost an investment of resources. You haven't put anyone at risk. You haven't, modified the integrity of the study. If we do that, you might remember when we first started the phase 1 trial and when we first developed the vaccine, I said it would be about a year to a year and a half, and that was in January. So a year from January is December. I still think that we have a good chance, if all the things fall in the right place, that we might have a vaccine that would be deployable by the end of the year, by December, November, December. I believe we can. Yeah.
As you know, this is an election year. Both parties would normally have big crowded conventions planned for the month of August, where you crowd many people into a confined space, an arena, many of them of an age that is a risk factor for COVID exposure here. Is that a fundamentally unsafe thing to do without restrictions, social distancing, etc.?
Well, what I think we need to do, Jim, is reserve judgment right now to see what the situation would be. I mean, if we have a really significant diminution in the number of new cases and hospitalizations, and we're at a level where it's really very low, then again, according to the guidelines, you may be able to go to whatever phase you're in and have some sort of a capability of gathering. But I think we need to reserve judgment right now because we're still a few months from there. Hopefully, we will see that diminution. If we don't, then as I've said before, I would have significant reservations about that.
Okay, schools, a lot of parents, myself included, looking to the fall, wondering, will it be safe to reopen? And you're seeing institutions make varied decisions. So University of California, California State Universities, they're not going to do it. Others, such as Notre Dame, they're going to open up. And then you have a whole host of smaller school districts around the country that have to make a decision about younger students. Is it safe, generally, for schools to reopen with safety restrictions in mind?
You know, Jim, the answer to that, I think, falls under the category of we can't say that one size fits all. And when people ask questions about what you can and cannot do, you always have to talk about what the dynamics of the outbreak are in the area that you're talking about. Because we live in a big country, and there are certain states, cities, regions, counties, in which the level of infection is at a rate that the schools can be much more flexible in how they open. Whereas in other areas, it may be that it is really quite risky. And I think what the regions have to do under the leadership of the local regions, with some guidance from the federal government, is to take a look at what the dynamics of the outbreak are and to make your recommendations, be it at a college or a high school or even an elementary school level. There needs to be flexibility, but judgment according to the situation on the ground.
Understood. Final question. I ask you this when I have the opportunity to speak with you. What's the best news that you've heard in the last couple of weeks about COVID that you could share with folks at home who are watching for something good to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jim, the best news from the standpoint of public health and then of science, the best news of public health is that we are seeing in certain areas a significant plateauing and diminution. That's sort of sobered by the fact that in other areas, unfortunately, we are seeing some uptick. So in the areas that are going down, it means when you do the mitigation, it works. We've known that for some time. The good news that's encouraging is a question that you asked just a few moments ago, that with regard to the development of a vaccine, although we can't guarantee anything, the initial steps that we're doing actually make us quite cautiously optimistic, particularly with the induction of the kind of response that you would predict might be protective. So in that arena, I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right, so that was the video. Second wave isn't inevitable if we do this. And that was Dr. Fauci speaking there. Now, I know some people are saying that the volume was low. I know some people had no issue with the volume. It could have been the video. The volume was turned all the way up. But you can simply, on your own time, go to YouTube, type in COVID second wave, and you can watch all the videos there talking about this. But in a nutshell, some of the key points that were brought out, that were said about this particular thing, was he was speaking to the first video we watched about how everybody was jam-packed into a pool, and how he said it wasn't prudent, all those people together in one place like that, not 6 feet apart, not wearing masks. You know, and who's wearing a mask in a swimming pool, right? And then he said, you know, we can prevent the second wave if we just listen to all the things basically the government and authoritative officials are saying. We can prevent we can prevent a second wave if we just listen to what we're being told to do. So basically, whatever we tell you to do, do it. If you don't do it, there's going to be a second wave. Those things being wear a mask, 6 feet apart, get tested. He mentioned contact tracing. If we continue to implement strong measures for tracing, with the Trace Act and all of those things, he said we can prevent the second wave. He talked about the different spikes from one city to the next. He's seeing the uptick now with cities that are opening back up. Also, you mentioned the vaccines, saying that, you know, there are hiccups and basically, you know, trial and error when it comes to vaccines. And it usually takes 1.5 years for it to be really in any place to be tested. So he already was letting us know that, you know, by the end of this year, it's going to be too soon for a vaccine. So for when they roll them vaccines out and people start taking them, they can always come back and say, well, we did say the vaccine wouldn't be ready till about 1.5 years. So these are just the first generation of people that have taken the, you know, or the people that have taken the first generation of this vaccine. We just got to go back and tweak it a little bit more. But those people that took it, all the vaccine damage and all of that, they can then, you know, use that narrative to absolve themselves from any type of blame. So those are some of the things that were being brought out in this video, talking about the potentiality of a second wave, which leads us to Operation Dark Winter. What is Operation Dark Winter? We're going to go into some articles here. We're also going to break it down in scriptures. Okay, we're going to break all this down in scriptures. All right, let me just get my article up here for you all. And if the videos, because we're going to play some videos too, if the videos aren't coming in, you know, loud enough on my end, then I'll I'll just try a different browser to see if it's loud enough, but it should be okay. It should be good. We will see. So, first article. This comes off of zerohedge.com. June 2001, bioterror exercise foreshadowed 9/11 and anthrax attacks. All right, 9/11, September 1st or September 11th, 2001. Those of us that can remember, that were old enough to remember, who could forget that day and the aftermath of all the things that followed, the reshaping of the world, the reshaping of America with what happened September 11th, 2001, and how this COVID event is actually being paralleled as the second 9/11. This article was October 12th, 2014. It says on June 22nd and 23rd, 2001, some 3 months before 9/11 or 9/11 and 4 months before the anthrax attacks, the U.S. military held a senior level war game at Andrews Air Force Base called Dark Winter. So Dark Winter was a war game. It was a war exercise or a war operation held by the U.S. military a few months before 9/11 happened and 4 months before the anthrax attacks. Many people may not remember the anthrax attacks, but there were the whole thing about anthrax in the mail. They were sending letters and the president could open it up and it could have anthrax in it. The terrorists were using these things. So all of this was actually done right before 9/11. Now, fast forward to recent months. What is this a similitude of? We talked about Event 201 and how Event 201 pretty much was a exercise or simulation exactly to the T of this whole COVID experience. Event 201 was a simulation, an operation, an exercise that they had a panel of people from all different various organizations that came together to simulate what would happen in the event of a mass pandemic with coronavirus being the boogeyman. Okay. And then in the midst of Event 201, following, you had what? Everything has happened up until now under COVID-19. And pretty much all of what they talked about in Event 201 has happened or is foreshadowing itself to happen if it hasn't happened yet, almost to the T. So Operation Dark Winter was basically the exact same operation, except it was 9/11 that followed. All right. 9/11. Now it says here, the scenario of this bioterrorism drill was designed to simulate a smallpox attack in 3 states. Numerous congressmen, former CIA Director James Woolsey, New York Times reporter Judith Miller, who pushed the Iraq WMD myth, as well as the false link between Iraq and the anthrax attacks, and anti-terror official Jerome Hauer all participated in the exercise. As a part of this war game, scripted TV news clips were made to help make this drill as realistic as possible. At the end, okay, so just like with Event 201 had scripted TV news clips. Well, Operation Dark Winter also had scripted TV news clips, meaning news that wasn't real. It was just a script to fit the operation, to go in line with the senior level war game that they were running, that the military is running at Andrews Air Force Base, called Dark Winter. So let's watch these scripted news clips here. All right. And it'll probably remind you a lot of the same type of news clips we saw with Event 201.
Good evening. We interrupt our regular programming to return to Southwest Medical Center and continuing coverage of the outbreak of a mystery sickness. Earlier today, hospital officials said they were admitting patients with symptoms that seemed to be severe adult chickenpox. But now we have new information. We go to Andy Field outside Southwest Medical Center. Good evening, Andy. What can you tell us?
Sheila, we've been moved to an isolated area behind the hospital. And off the record, doctors here suspect that at least 5 patients hospitalized at Southwest may have smallpox. Now, for those of us who don't remember the disease, it is a deadly virus. We haven't seen it in this country in at least 20 years. Now, if this proves to be true, we could have a very serious health emergency on our hands. But officially, the hospital will not confirm or deny that diagnosis.
And the problem is we don't have enough vaccine to go around.
Meaning we don't have enough vaccine for the United States?
Well, I would like to think that, but we don't have sufficient stockpiles for the people in Oklahoma, Georgia, or Pennsylvania, much less for the entire United States population.
Well, that certainly doesn't sound encouraging. What do you mean exactly?
Angie, it means it could be a very dark winter for America.
Sobering. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Kavlik. We do continue to wait for official reaction to this developing situation. Now we go to a special report on the deadly effects of smallpox that led scientists to launch an eradication program thought to wipe out. On day 6 of the smallpox epidemic, the White House confirmed that federal government officials and military personnel are being vaccinated. 300 people have died. At least 2,000 are infected with smallpox. Smallpox symptoms are being seen in 15 states, also in Canada, Mexico, and England. The U.S. smallpox vaccine supply continues to shrink as officials try to stretch limited stocks to cover the entire nation. An official announcement regarding the remaining vaccine inventory is expected later today. Struggles to get vaccinated led to violence in some cities. Profound economic losses are crippling the nation. In Oklahoma alone, economic experts project severe losses in the state's multi-billion-dollar agricultural commodities market. Still, no group claims responsibility for unleashing the deadly smallpox virus. But NCN has learned that Iraq may have provided the technology behind the attack to terrorist groups based in Afghanistan. We have a breaking story from Oklahoma. We go straight to Andy Fields of Oklahoma City's KMSA. Andy, are you there?
Angie, Texas Governor Rick Parsons has now suspended all surface and air contact between Texas and Oklahoma. He has ordered his state troopers and the National Guard to seal the borders. Now, we're about a mile away from the Texas border here, just near Interstate 35 and the Red River Bridge that connects the two states. The troopers here have taken the media to what they call a so-called safe spot. But as we've told you earlier today, Oklahomans by the carload have been seen leaving the state in every direction trying to escape this deadly smallpox outbreak. Now, we have reports of vigilantes at the Texas border trying to stop people from coming over. I don't know if you just heard that. That it was a shot fired. We've heard, there's another one. Now, we're not sure where these shots are coming from. We're a little too far away from the border to hear this here, but there have been shots. This is the second time in the hour we've heard this. The National Guard and the Oklahoma State Troopers are here with us. We're not certain who's doing the firing or if what we're hearing is return firing. There's another shot. It's starting to sound like a war zone. I'm Andy Field reporting.
No other country in the world is accepting flights originating in or transiting the U.S. On day 12 of the worst public health crisis in America's history, demonstrations for more vaccine in hard-hit communities disintegrated into riots and looting around the nation. Interstate commerce has stopped in several regions of the nation. A national suspension of trading on America's stock exchanges takes effect tomorrow. International commerce with the U.S. has virtually ceased. The Centers for Disease Control report that efforts to stem the smallpox epidemic have depleted America's inventory of smallpox vaccine. While the CDC may be out of the vaccine, at least 45 internet websites are now offering what they claim are safe, effective vaccines. These claims have not, we repeat, they have not been independently verified. Authorities urge caution. At least 25 states and 10 foreign countries are reporting smallpox infections. At the United Nations temporarily meeting in Geneva, China has sponsored a resolution to censure the U.S., blaming America for reintroducing smallpox to the world. It demands the U.S. supply the world with vaccine. Since the diagnosis of 20 smallpox cases in Oklahoma City 12 days ago, hundreds have now died, thousands have become infected. The latest figures show more than 15,000 new cases in the past week. Officials now question whether a single attack could be responsible for this outbreak pattern developing in the U.S., but they project that each 2 to 3 week period will see a minimum 10-fold increase in new cases.
Looked pretty real to me. Watching that looked like watching regular CNN or Fox or MSNBC news. I mean, what's the difference? So seeing those clips of fake news would make you wonder and, really ask the question, is the news that they're giving us not the same of what we just watched just now? Is it any difference? Is it all just one big programming mechanism to program us and condition us with the agenda that they would like? Because if you had not known that this was scripted news and just somebody had sent it to you and said, hey, check this out, you would have thought it was just normal news. You never would have known that this was actually admitted scripted news for this military exercise. And so there's some key things that stand out here. Key things that stand out. Again, this is Operation Dark Winter. And it was centered all around smallpox. Now, if we look back to the history of the Europeans that came over from Europe about 400 or 500 years ago, maybe longer, came over and actually were giving blankets to the Native American Indians that were infected with smallpox. And this was bioterrorism in itself, of crimes that were never accounted for, that were waged against a whole people with genocide on a whole race of people, to take their land, their culture, take everything from them. And that same disease was actually used as the boogeyman in this particular operation. All right, it was the main culprit for the reason behind the event happening for Operation Dark Winter. Then after the event happened, you had a man come on It said his name. Let me see if I can get it here real quick. It was Dr. Robert Cadlick, biowarfare defense expert. He came on and said that we don't have enough stockpiles of vaccines, similar to what we just heard. You had this guy right here, Dr. Robert Cadlick, biowarfare defense expert, come on and say we need more stockpiles of vaccines. And notice how the solution every time is vaccines. There's no other solution but vaccines. Because we don't have enough vaccines stockpiled, then it's going to be a dark winter. Same thing we heard from your so-called whistleblower, Dr. Rick Bright, ousted director of a key federal vaccine agency. All right. He said the exact same words. If there's not enough stockpile of vaccines, because vaccines is the solution. That's why he was kicked out, because he was a radical vaccine proponent. If there's not enough vaccines, if we don't get these vaccines out quick and fast, there's going to be a very dark winter in America this year. Okay, so we're already seeing a lot of parallels here when we talk about Operation Dark Winter and what's happening right now with COVID, with this COVID event. So let's go to our next article. Actually, let me give you, brothers and sisters, this article here real quick, so you can have it. You can check it out. There's more in there we didn't cover, but I will give it to you all so that y'all can read it on your own time. And we're going to move over to the next article here, which is the actual PDF from the official Dark Winter website. Center for Health Security.org. It says final script, Dark Winter exercise. Bioterrorism exercise, Andrews Air Force Base, June 22nd, 23rd, 2001. Property of John Hopkins Center for Civilian Biodefense, Center for Strategic International Studies, Answer, and Memorial Institute for the Prevention of Terrorism. So they're saying that this was a bioterrorism event. This was actually, wasn't something that just came out of nowhere. This was actually a man-made event. So a lot is actually told by them in these particular instances before the actual real event happens. That these are man-made events. These are scripts. And there's a lot here. We're not going to go through it all. We're going to actually go to another website that kind of breaks it down in a more condensed form. All right, but this goes out in complete detail. Again, smallpox disease is kind of like chicken pox, right? These are all diseases that they've created. Any disease that's dealing with something like this, with the chicken pox or smallpox, these are all diseases. But the same people that are creating these diseases and that are responsible are the same people that are supposed to say, we have the cure for you and we'll give you the cure. But the cure requires you to take a vaccine that has a disease in it. All right, and how many sheep will run right down to the slaughterhouse, their hospital, to be vaccinated with the disease? Right? Definitely horrific pictures here of what this disease does, and this is one of the many diseases, right? But this breaks it down in full detail, and they put it out for the public to be able to view it. All right, this is not hidden or a secret. Okay, so it's got charts. Like these people are serious with their sorcery. They call themselves scientists and doctors, but they're sorcerers, wizards, and witches. Right. So let me go ahead and give you all this one, and we'll go to reading about Operation Dark Winter. And this comes from the same website, centerforhealthsecurity.org. John Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health. It says about the exercise. Happened in June 2001. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, the Johns Hopkins Center for Civilian Biodefense Studies, Answer Institute, Homeland Security, and the Oklahoma City National Memorial Institute for the Prevention Terrorism hosted a senior-level war game examining the national security, intergovernmental, and information challenges of a biological attack on the American homeland. And this came 3 months before 9/11. And notice this came out of tensions with China. Just like COVID. It says, with tensions rising in the Taiwan Straits and a major crisis developing in Southwest Asia, a smallpox outbreak was confirmed by the CDC in Oklahoma City. During the 13 days of the game, the disease spread to 25 states and 15 other countries. So here's a question that I have. Here's a question that I have. Oklahoma City is in the middle of the country. And this was supposed to have developed in Southwest Asia. So, of course, somebody could have flew in a plane, but Oklahoma City isn't a major city for, travel. Like, it doesn't have a major airport where people are coming in from other countries into it. So it's interesting that right in the smack dab middle of the United States, this disease started. And then it spread to 25 other states, 15 other countries. It says 14 participants and 60 observers witnessed terrorism warfare in slow motion. So these people are actually practicing terrorism warfare. So it would be nothing for them to be the ones to execute it if they're practicing it. Right? Because I was always told practice is something that you do to get ready for the real thing. It says discussions, debates, some rather heated, are decisions focused on the public health response, lack of an adequate supply of smallpox vaccine, roles and missions of federal and state governments, civil liberties associated with quarantine and isolation, the role of DOD, and potential military responses to the anonymous attack. Additionally, a predictable 24/7 news cycle quickly developed that focused the nation and the world on the attack and response. 5 representatives from the National Press Corps, including print and broadcast, participated in the game and conducted a lengthy press conference with the president. So here are all the people that were involved in the war game. You got presidents, directors, chairmen, attorney generals, governors, Pentagon producers, CBS News, New York Times. The players were introduced to this crisis during a National Security Council meeting scheduled to address several emerging crises, including the deployment of a carrier task force to the Middle East. Check this out. 9/11 happened America went to war where? In the Middle East. But this exercise took place before 9/11, and it dealt with the deployment of a carrier task force to the Middle East. At the start of the meeting, the Director of Health and Human Services informed the President of confirmed case of smallpox in Oklahoma City. Additional smallpox cases were soon identified in Georgia and Pennsylvania. More cases were reported in Oklahoma. The source of the infection was unknown, and exposure was presumed to have taken place at least 9 days earlier due to the lengthy incubation period of smallpox. Consequently, exposed individuals had likely traveled far from the low key of what was now presumed to be a biological attack. The scenario spanned 13 days. Here are the findings. An attack on the United States with biological weapons could threaten vital national security interests. Massive civilian casualties, breakdown in essential institutions, violation of democratic processes, civil disorder, loss of confidence in government, and reduced U.S. strategic flexibility abroad are among the ways a biological attack might compromise U.S. security. Current organizational structures and capabilities are not well suited for the management of a bioweapon attack. Major fault lines exist between different levels of government, federal, state, and local, between government and the private sector, among different institutions and agencies, and within the public and private sector. These disconnects could impede situational awareness and compromise the ability to limit loss of life, suffering, and economic damage. There is no surge capability in the U.S. healthcare and public systems or in the pharmaceutical and vaccine industries. The institutionally limited surge capacity could result in hospitals being overwhelmed and becoming inoperable, but it could impede public health agencies' analysis of the scope, source, and progress of the epidemic, their ability to educate and reassure the public, and their capability to limit casualties in the spread of disease. Number 4, dealing with the media will be a major immediate challenge for all levels of government. Information management and communication, for example, dealing with the press effectively, communication with citizens, maintaining the information flows necessary for command and control at all institutional levels, will be a critical element in crisis consequence management. Number 5, should a contagious bioweapon pathogen be used, containing the spread of disease will present significant ethical, political, cultural, operation, and legal challenges. So with all this talk of Dark Winter by Dr. Rick Bright, the second wave talk of the government and the media, could there be an orchestrated and manufactured bioweapon attack coming this fall? Whether it's something that is unleashed by the governments or the organizations like those that actually, make disease, those that culture disease, a bioweapon is launched, warfare on the public. Or could it be a scenario where there are scapegoats used, like another Osama bin Laden, that's said to have unleashed a bioweapon, that have unleashed COVID, weaponized COVID? So these particular operations kind of give us some insight into the minds of those who were behind them and how they could use these particular studies for their agendas, to actually launch their agendas. All they have to do is be able to control the narrative and however they want to write that story. to get the American people to buy it. And so this particular event that we're in right now, which I would say we're still in event 201, was an opportunity for them to study everyone's response to how obedient, how willingly they are to comply to the government and to the authoritative powers that rule over us. Shutting down your businesses, staying in your homes, wearing masks, being 6 feet apart. All right. Not gathering. Them telling you to jump and you saying how high. This is an opportunity for them to collect data, to now prepare for the second wave and the waves that follow. They've done all these operations over the years, and this was the first time that they've actually launched one on a worldwide, a worldwide level across the whole world. Most of these particular instances are isolated. They're isolated away from the public, or if they're done in small little sectors, to where only a certain demographic of people or a population of people even know or have access to this happening. But with COVID-19, it went live worldwide. Okay, they've done drills in the past with these psychological operations in different cities, different neighborhoods. But now they're ready to put all the data that they've collected throughout all the years of their simulations. Now they're ready to start putting them in full worldwide motion. That's what you get from studying these particular things that they're doing. The last part here, it says smallpox, because of its high case fatality rates and transmissibility, represents one of the most serious biological warfare threats to the civilian population. So because smallpox is so fatal and it's so transmissible, it's one of the most serious biological warfare threats to people. And this is what was used against the Native American Indians. And nothing was ever done on their behalf. And nothing was ever done to those people that waged this warfare. And this is just one of many diseases. All right, you can put Ebola in the same, put it in the same boat. Highly fatal and highly transmissible. These highly fatal and transmissible biological warfare diseases that they have at their disposal. It says in 1980, the World Health Assembly announced that smallpox had been eradicated and recommended that all countries cease vaccination. So they had destroyed smallpox. Well, if they created it, all right, understand that it wasn't destroyed. It was just contained. It's still in a laboratory somewhere. And all it takes is for somebody to unleash it. But they'll have you think that it's just naturally occurring and it's been eradicated. It says, although labs in 2 countries still officially store smallpox samples. Check this out. I want y'all to see this. They're admitting that 2 labs, that labs in 2 countries still officially store smallpox samples. You wouldn't believe what 2 countries this is. You probably know. United States and Russia. Okay, 2 Idumean or Edomite countries. They both Edom. have the smallpox sample in their laboratories. Why? If this is so deadly, okay, this is so transmissible, why do they still have it in their labs? Why haven't they completely destroyed it? It says its reappearance would almost certainly indicate an intentional outbreak. I mean, they're putting it right in our face to let us know. COVID-19 had a patent taken out on it. Bill Gates took a patent out on COVID-19. Okay, Center for Disease and Control. They create and control the disease. They are the bioterrorists. The powers of Edom, primarily Amalek. These are the Amalekite powers at work, and we're going to talk more about them, the sons of Amalek, as we continue on here. It says, aerosol release of smallpox virus disseminated among a relatively small population could result in a significant epidemic. Evidence suggests the infectious dose is very small. Several factors are cause for concern. The disease has historically been feared as one of the most serious of all pestilential diseases. So it's a pestilence. I'm going to talk about that more in Scripture. A pestilence. It is physically disfiguring. It bears a 30% case fatality rate. There is no treatment. 30% case fatality rate. COVID has a 0.1% fatality rate and is being deemed a pandemic. 0.1%. 100,000 people have died, they're saying, which is nothing in comparison to people dying from much, much more worse things. Much more higher levels of death happening from other diseases. But 100,000 people died from COVID and the whole world shuts down. The whole world being shut down over a cold. Normal, everyday symptoms. It says vaccination ceased in this country in 1972, and vaccination immunity acquired before that time has undoubtedly waned. Prior to eradication, data on smallpox outbreaks in Europe indicated that victims had the potential to infect 10 to 20 others. There go your contact tracers. Okay? However, there has never been a smallpox outbreak in such a densely populated, highly mobile, unvaccinated population such as exists today. In 1947, in response to a single case of smallpox in New York City, 6.3 million people were immunized, 500,000 in one day, including President Harry Truman. In 1972, after disappearing from Yugoslavia for 4 decades, a single case of smallpox emerged. So if they have this in laboratories and they're saying that it's been eradicated, if it still exists, how has it been eradicated? It's not eradicated. They can make it pop up at any moment and say, oh, it popped up in such and such place. How did it just pop up? If nobody had it, how did a case pop up and emerge? There are 2 ways to control a smallpox epidemic: vaccine and isolation. We've heard that a lot here lately under COVID, right? The only way to contain COVID is through isolation. Stay in your house, no gatherings, and vaccines. Okay? The blueprint doesn't change. The faces change, the names change, but the blueprint is the same. Yugoslavia's communist leader, Josip Tito, used both. He instituted a nationwide quarantine. And immunized the entire country of 20 million people using vaccines supplied by the World Health Organization. Check that out. In Yugoslavia, he did pretty much what they did for the whole world, but he did it just for his country. Nationwide quarantine, and then vaccinated everybody in his country with a vaccine that was supplied by the WHO. 20 million people. Estimates of the current U.S. supply of smallpox vaccine range from 7 to 12 million doses. This stock cannot be immediately replenished, since all vaccine production facilities were dismantled after 1980, and renewed vaccine production is estimated to require at least 24 to 36 months. Check that out. It takes almost 3 years, but yet they have Operation Warp Speed, in which they're getting a vaccine ready in less than a year for COVID. And a limited supply, so people will be banging down the doors to get in line for that vaccine because it's limited. They don't have stockpiles of it. Guess who will be first in line? Our people, the poor. They'll be the first ones in line to get the vaccine. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently contracted with Acombis Inc. of Cambridge, Massachusetts to produce 40 million doses of new vaccine. See that? So because of these particular events, it now gives them an excuse to now make more vaccines or come up with new vaccines. Operation Dark Winter, brothers and sisters, is approaching. And they're making people believe that things are going to go back to normal, that this is the new normal, we're going to open things back up. But all in the while, they're putting it in our face. And there goes the article right there. They're putting it in our faces. Their plans, what they've been planning this whole time. And they're also putting it in the news through their programming, through their seeds that they're planting. Let's go to the next article here. Okay, so I hope we're starting to get a picture painted on this Operation Dark Winter and just how parallel it is to what's going on right now. This is Activist Post. All roads lead to dark winter. April 1st, 2020. Now, this article came out before the so-called whistleblower, Dr. Bright, called or warned for a dark winter. Okay, this article is May 14th, 2020. So about a month before that happened, this particular author, Whitney Webb, authors Whitney Webb and Rual Diego, who the name of their reporting agency, The Last American Vagabond, they already seen all roads leading to dark winter before they even had called or warned in government that a dark winter was coming. Because again, if you study history, the blueprint never changes. The faces and the names change. The technology changes. Everything else stays the same. So they were able to see dark winter coming. And even myself, when I was thinking about it, I said, well, as the summertime is approaching, and it's spring, people aren't going to have any symptoms. So, I could see things opening back up. But when we get close to fall and wintertime, that's when flu season starts to, present itself. That's when you're going to start to see the next thing happen. You have the so-called election happening in November. These things are clear and easy to see for those that study history and those that are operating with wisdom, operating with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit gives discernment and insight to some of these things. Right? Now, we might not be right on all particular ideas that we come up with that say, hey, I can foresee this happening. Okay, but oftentimes, I would like to think that we're more right than wrong. And that's the type of wisdom that we want to be able to walk in these last days. Isaiah chapter 33, knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times and the strength of thy salvation. Okay, we must walk with wisdom. Okay, understanding the scriptures, understanding the past. We're going to go into the scriptures to show these things happening in the past. No new thing under the sun. Check this out. The leaders of two controversial pandemic simulations that took place just months before the coronavirus crisis, Event 201, right? Talked about that. And Crimson Contagion share a common history. The 2001 biowarfare simulation, Dark Winter. Dark Winter not only predicted the 2001 anthrax attacks, but some of its participants had clear foreknowledge of those attacks. And this article goes into all of that, exposing all of that. And it's a very, very long article. I'm not going to go into it, but if you read this, it'll go into the history of what happened right before 9/11 with this Operation Dark Winter, what happened during 9/11, and what happened before, what happened during, and what happened after 9/11. And it goes into all of that, showing you how these operations are actually there practiced for the event, for the main event. And they continue to use these operations over and over and over and over again. Meaning they don't come up with an operation and then scrap it and throw it away and let's come up with a new one. No. They're going to use that same operation over and over and over again. They give it a different name. They'll use a different scenario as far as, well, before it was anthrax, well, now let's use COVID. But what's the end game? Isolation and vaccination, regardless if it's smallpox or it's COVID, or if it's any other disease they get, whatever name they give to it, doesn't matter. So let me put this in the chat, this article here. Y'all can study this. A lot of information there. Too much to go through. Sometimes I can't even read all the information. I just skim through it, try to hit the main points. All right, but you brothers and sisters, y'all should be able to study it and school me on it and give me insight to a lot of the stuff that's coming out in these particular these memos and these simulations that they're actually documenting and then releasing to the public for just your own view. The devil has to tell you what he's doing. He can't hide it. But the question is, how many people are actually looking for it? If you are looking for it, what's the chances you're going to be able to find it? It's not always easy to find this information, but it's out there. Let's go through this article here. This comes off Zero Hedge. The COVID-19 Dark Winter PSYOP. Question everything. It says here, a quote, "If you would be a real seeker of truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt. as far as possible, all things. And the Bible and Timothy tells us, prove all things. And study to show thyself approved. Okay, so things had to be proven. You know, and your opinion should be heavily weighted with facts that have, you know, caused you to come to the opinion you've come down with, not just based on feeling. Intuition, discernment, all those things have their place, but you want your opinion to be heavily weighted with facts and information. It says here, the only real defense that is valid during this exercise in mass tyranny is total refusal to comply with any and all government mandates. We are in the midst of the largest psychological operation, or PSYOP, in the history of mankind. By questioning everything concerning this manufactured virus pandemic, which I call the SCAMdemic, the SHAMdemic, or plandemic, the resulting attitude cannot leave anything other than extreme doubt. And doubt is what can bring the masses out of the dark and into the light. The newest term being targeted toward the masses is the coming of the dark winter, which is nothing more than propaganda-based lies meant to prepare the sheep for a planned continuation and escalation of this fake pandemic in order to bring about world domination. Okay, these are my words. Matter of fact, I haven't even read this article. Tyler Durden wrote this article. I haven't even read this article. This is my first time reading it. But I know what this article is going into. The same mind that I have when it comes to all of this when we talk about Operation Dark Winter. Now, I may not agree with every single point. You may not. Maybe we do. Who knows? But we'll see. All in all, there's a lot of information here that we can use for our benefit. All right? Operation Dark Winter was the code name for a senior level bioterrorist attack simulation conducted from June 22nd to the 23rd, 2001, which was designed to carry out a mock version of a covert bioweapons attack on the United States. The players involved in this were the Johns Hopkins Center for Civilian Biodefense Strategies and Center for Strategic and International Studies. And the project designers were Randy Larson and Mark Demir of Analytic Services. It is very interesting that the same Johns Hopkins, along with the evil Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, conducted Event 201. So Event 201 was also conducted by the Johns Hopkins Center. All right, the same Johns Hopkins Center that conducted Operation Dark Winter. Okay, because Event 201 is Operation Dark Winter. It says a coronavirus simulation just this past October, talking about Event 201, on the verge of this so-called pandemic. The same players, same objectives, but now it is real. Rick Bright, the former director of the Department of Health and Human Services Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, and claimed whistleblower, has been all over the mainstream news as of late, projecting the darkest winter in modern history. Using this term was no accident, and in fact was meant as propaganda to frighten and alarm the already cowardly and pathetic public. It was also meant to instill a mindset of a killing plague soon to come. This was completely staged in my opinion, but it will nonetheless be accepted by a society steeped in fear due to this crisis. Now, I would say it was staged also. Okay, all these people are in it together. They're just playing different roles in the script. They show us the script. They show us Event 201. They show us Operation Dark Winter. They show us the fake news, the scripted news, how they play different roles. These people are actors. They're actors playing out a script, making you think that they're against each other, Republican versus Democrat, Fauci versus Trump. Dr. Bright versus Dr. Fauci. WWE, WWF. That's all this is. It says, I would expect the term dark winter to become a new buzzword, as this new term the second time around is strictly tied to the original scenario but applied to today's panic. None of this is coincidence. None of it is accidental, but it is sinister. If things continue as they have been, and this lockdown remains in place, whether fully or partially, the anticipation of this dark winter will be on the minds of most all American sheep, especially if it is continually used as a threat of things to come. With that in the minds of the public, they will be expecting the worst and will probably get exactly what they expect: another planned pandemic. Okay, but the second wave will be the first wave on steroids. You can best believe that. The second woe. The current governmental plan, regardless of what is particularly open this summer, is to continue to mandate social distancing and mask as some sort of fox protection against this non-existent threat. And we heard Fauci say that in the video we played. He said, well, if we want to stop the second wave from coming, we just need to listen and follow the orders of the authorities, which is mask, social distancing, contact tracing, etc., etc., etc. So all they have to do is say, well, we put the plans in place, nobody followed it. And now look where it's led us. It wasn't followed to the letter of the law. It says, in addition, testing as many people as possible with flawed tests will continue, and more demands to test will be forthcoming. While that is happening, the contact tracing of individuals become more and more evident as tracking technology is advanced and implemented nationwide. So now they have the market and the demand for the technology to now trace you. All right. Nobody's going to question them putting billions upon billions of dollars in the tracing technology. They'll actually demand it. Yeah, we need to have these apps. Yeah, we need to have this tracing technology in place. People will beg for this technology. Because again, we've been so consumed with technology. Technology has become our savior. Okay, look at the things that they're giving to us for salvation. Not one time are these people saying anything about God, anything about Christ. Everything is technology, vaccines, listen to men, the men that rule over you. Okay, these are their solutions. Okay, it says, if things continue as they have been and this lockdown remains in place, whether fully or partially, the anticipation of this dark winter will be on the minds of most all-American sheep, especially if it is continually used as a threat of things to come. It says, I read that there. Let me just pick up where I left off. It says, in addition, testing as many people as possible with flawed tests. Read that. Okay, so it says this. All of this is leading to this current crisis stage's ultimate goal, which is forced mass vaccination. That's the end game. All these little things are doing in between, the mask, the social distancing, the testing, all that is just leading up to the vaccination. That's part of the conditioning and part of their psychological control. But the vaccination is the end game. They showed us that in Operation Dark Winter when the Yugoslavian dictator, as he was called, forced his whole country to be mass vaccinated behind one smallpox case. And forced quarantine the whole country. It says, as I wrote a few days ago, the government has announced that a contract for $138 million has been issued to fund production of 500 million pre-filled COVID-19 vaccine injection devices, this before any vaccine is available or tested. Okay. And we talked about these vaccines have a RFID chip attached to them. We talked about how the military is being deployed, which are going to be those that are going to be giving out the vaccination. So it shouldn't be any question of what the end game is here for COVID. Now, the vaccine isn't the end game to all of this. The mark of the beast is the end game. But the vaccine and the mark of the beast are now being intertwined through your ID 2020. All of this biometrics is now being combined in the vaccine and through the technology. And it means to totally control your body. Totally turn you and alter your DNA. And alter your image of the Most High God. Your image will be altered and you will be a creation of a whole different being. Okay, a whole different race. It says here, as any should be able to see, this is a complex but easily identifiable plot that is coming to fruition very quickly and with little resistance. It is planned down to the last detail, just as were all the practice runs that were acted out in the past. I have always thought that bad people will expose what they are up to if only people would listen. Well, this time they have told the public over and over again what was coming, but few listen. Because they're telling us right in our face what's coming and what they're about to do. Okay, but people cannot put the dots together. The injection devices are already available, and now Trump is mobilizing the entire military to make war against the American people by sending armed soldiers into the streets to vaccinate by force everyone in the country. Without mass resistance, the next phase will be successful. And then the following phase of population control would have already been implemented due to the poisoning, sterilizing, and possibly chipping of all those vaccinated. These plans are being accomplished out in the open and with the consent, implied or not, of the people in this country. It says here, multiple agendas are being advanced, and the destruction of the economy and the resulting dependence of the population on government are going forward and being accepted. Pending legislation to print more money and dole it out to those out of work is already in process, as $3 trillion will most likely be distributed in small part to appease those not working. But most of that newly printed money will be used to continue the transfer of wealth to a few at the top. As debt, poverty, and bankruptcy continues to decimate the general population, the top of the heap will continue to buy up assets at depressed prices with taxpayer money. So in essence, those now starving are helping to enrich the perpetrators of this fraudulent virus scam. All right, the scamdemic. We are definitely facing a horrible pandemic, but it is not due to any virus. The real pandemic is that the United States government and the enforcers for the controlling ruling class are waging war on American citizens and will not relent until the people themselves stop it. This totalitarian takeover will never cease by using the political system, as the corrupt system is why we are in this mess in the first place. A belief in nation instead of self led to nationalistic pride where none was deserved, and has brought complacency, weakness, and dependence on government, and left the people without the will to self-rule. The result is obvious, but more than that, it is now fatally dangerous. As I have said earlier this year, No vibrant society can exist in a state of obedience. While many great minds have discussed the natural desire of man to obey authority, including Sigmund Freud, this trait in man does not allow the capability to seek or claim freedom. The obedient are bound to a life of rule, as that is their nature. So let me just interject on that comment. There's nothing wrong with obedience as long as obedience in righteousness, righteous rulership. It's being obedient to evil, obedient to wicked rulers. Okay, so maybe that's what would be expounded upon in this particular quote by this individual, but I just want to put it out there because the scriptures tell us we must be in obedience to those who rule over us. But it's not talking about government. It's not talking about the governments of these worlds. It's talking about to the Most High's church, his government. And we're going to get that in scripture later as well. It says here, freedom and independence could only be achieved and held by non-obedient, non-conforming individuals. Therefore, we must, in order to defeat this criminal government force, become a nation of dissenters by not complying with any government order concerning this government-created fake crisis. So I'll deal with that later, that part right there, when it comes to how we are to deal with being non-conforming to evil rulers of darkness that rule over us. I'll deal with that in scripture, but I want to give you this link. And then we're going to move on to the next article, followed by a video. So I said before I read that article, there may be parts that I don't agree with. So, possibly, if that author was there to expound upon what they were saying, maybe they would go further in detail what they're saying. But things must be weighed through the scriptures when it comes to those particular comments and how we are to operate when it comes to dealing with Caesar. Next article. Another report. This report is a World at Risk annual report on global preparedness for health emergencies. Global Preparedness Monitoring Board. Let's check out the date. September 2019. Now, this is an annual report. All right. And just want to hit some main points within this. Check this out. Executive summary. Actions for leaders to take. The world requires determined political leadership to prepare for health threats at national and global levels. The GPMB calls for 7 urgent actions to prepare the world for health emergencies. Heads of government must commit and invest. And if you look what's happened, all the heads of government across the world have all committed and invested with this situation. They've all shut their countries down. And it says here, progress indicators by September 2020. So they need to see where all this is at. They need to have all this data collected by September 2020, which is right around fall time, going into the winter. They need to have all this information collected so they know where they stand. Okay, they can analyze it and then utilize the data collected. 2, countries and regional organizations must lead by example. Number 3, all countries must build strong systems. Number 4, countries, donors, and multilateral institutions must be prepared for the worst. Financing institutions must link preparedness with financial risk planning. Development assistance funders must create incentives and increase funding for preparedness. And number 7, the UN must strengthen coordination mechanisms, meaning the UN must bring it all together. So notice this too came right before COVID. All of these particular guidelines of what these governments must be able to come together and do in one with the United Nations. Okay, and here you have it. You got your hazmat suits, your goggles, right? A world at risk. So we can see the devil is busy. When it comes to his plans and what he's implementing, he's busy and he has people busy, whether you're knowingly working for him or not. You have to ask yourself, whose kingdom are you building? Okay, whose will are you doing in this whole grand scheme of things? The world is at acute risk for devastating regional or global disease epidemics or pandemics that not only cause loss of life but upend economies and create social chaos. How do they know this? How do they know this? Oh yeah, they're the ones who are the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They're the ones that create and control the disease. Right? That's the only way I could conclude that they would know that the world is at risk of disease and pandemics and epidemics, is if they're planning it out and they're the ones that hold the power, to create and unleash these things. Check this out. The poor suffer the most. The poor suffer the most. That's who the vaccines will be aimed at, is the poor, because they are so concerned with helping out the poor that they're willing to put billions and billions of their own personal money because they care about the poor and want to help the poor. They're not going to give you any food or any water, but they got vaccines for you. They're not talking about building your infrastructure, building great sewage systems, building homes, hospitals, schools. No. None of those things. They got a stockpile of vaccinations that they're building up for you, and that's the one shot. That's the one-stop shop. The vaccine will solve all your problems. All right, that's how they're championing it. It is our savior. All economies are vulnerable. So if all economies are vulnerable, that means no economy is safe. That means that when the economies collapse, all must come under one rule of law when it comes to dealing with economical and financial scenarios. Meaning you can't escape the economic plans that they have for the whole world. Revelation 13, he causeth all, both rich and poor, free and bond, great and small, All right. All economies have to be vulnerable. And again, they go into their charts, their graphs, their breakdowns. Check this out. The chances of a global pandemic are growing. How do they know? How do they know? They're taking data because diseases are popping up in different places. But it's the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. If they cause the problem, meaning they create the disease, they unleash the disease on populations like the Tuskegee experiment. They give you the disease, or they cause it to emerge, or even make you think that it emerged, whether it did or it didn't. Then they can say that the chances of a global pandemic are growing. But they're the ones that are behind it growing. Whether it's fake news and propaganda or them unleashing these diseases on small populations. The world is not prepared for a fast-moving, virulent, respiratory pathogen pandemic. The 1918 global influenza pandemic sickened 1/3 of the world population and killed as many as 50 million people. How do they know the world's not prepared? And prepared for a virulent respiratory pathogen pandemic. Isn't that what COVID is? It's not just any disease, but it's a virulent respiratory pathogen. Similar to the Spanish flu of 1918. Okay, again, all of this, September 2019, they're telling you. And now we are here. And they can say, well, we told you so. We told you it was coming. We tried to warn you. No, you planned it out the whole time. This was the plans the whole time. This is the conditioning and the seed planting. Check this out. Trust in institutions is eroding. Government, scientists, the media, public health systems, and health workers in many countries are facing a breakdown in public trust that is threatening their ability to function effectively. I wonder why people are not trusting the government, these scientists, the media, the doctors anymore. Is it because they are forgers of lies, physicians of no value, and people are now catching on to their crafty tricks? So they understand and know people aren't trusting authoritative figures. They know it. But they got a plan, they got a way to deal with that too. Progress Challenges Actions, WHO. They make it look so nice and wonderful, right? Like they make it look just normal. Okay. So they get you around the round tables. They have the head, the head taskmaster, and then they train the sheep on how we're going to deal with this and what you're going to do. All right? To be useful idiots with implementing, because the system can only be what it is based upon the manpower. All right. If people are putting their energy and time into building the system, it's going to be a beast. But once you pull yourself out and away from it, there is no system. Okay, but like people say, hey, I'm just here to collect a paycheck. I'm just doing my job. I got to make a living. But at what cost? At what cost? All right, according to their documents, in this particular one, they need everybody on board. Okay, and they need this by September 2020. It's this. They say this over and over again through this document. Progress indicators by September 2020. Preparing for the worst. Of course, here come the masks. Right? These photo ops. You got to have the mask on. The mask is another savior. It's another thing that's going to save you. It says high impact respiratory pathogens such as an especially deadly strain of influenza pose particular global risk in the modern age. The pathogens are spread via respiratory droplets. They can infect a large number of people very quickly, and with today's transportation infrastructure, move rapidly across multiple geographies. Isn't that what they've been telling us about COVID? These pathogens are spread via respiratory droplets. So you got to put the mask on. The mask is going to save you from those respiratory droplets. Okay? Okay, and of course, all of this is going to affect what? The economy, financing. So they got to have the banks and all the financial institutions on board too. And this is the ultimate end game. Of course, the vaccinations are the precursor, but the ultimate end game is to bring you under their one world financing system, which Revelation 13 calls the mark of the beast, where you cannot buy or sell save he that have the mark. International coordination mechanisms. You must be internationally coordinated, meaning all countries must be on board. Whether you go from one country or the next, you're going to be under the same type of law. So it's a one world order. They go over their challenges, they go over their obstacles, and then they give the required actions of what must happen. And these people are so bold, they even put their face in to let you know who they are. They have no shame. Oh, we see some familiar faces here. Dr. Chris Elias, President, Global Development Program, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You remember him from Event 201? And of course, we have our main man, Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, who we just saw in video earlier and has been the face of this whole COVID scamdemic. Okay, so these are those people that sit at those board tables and plan out your and my future. And they know what's best for us. They're going to do us a favor because they care so much on our livelihood that they're going to be God. They're going to play God. And we will obey them as they are our gods. That's what these people are setting themselves up in the likeness of. Okay, so another insightful document, A World at Risk, preparing for September 2020 to gather all this information, because right now is A lot of gathering going on. A lot of contact tracing. They're gathering information. So when they launch what they're going to launch, they can be as prepared as can be going into the next phase, the next wave. Okay, and these are the documentations they've come up with to help them get to their goals. Here is the link for that. And now I want to play a video. We're coming to the end of the information when it comes to Dark Winter. But I want to play a video because we talk about their documents, their operations, their simulations, their exercises, all these things they do. We talked about the fake news, the propaganda, Hollywood, how they put this out in movies. We talked about the fifth wave. Well, they also do it through another media, and that is video games. Video games are highly predictively programming people, and mainly the youth, okay, to accept this new way of life as being normal. Okay, high-level programming, high-level conditioning, spell casting, and sorcery at work through video games. And the difference between video games and a movie is a video game, you're actually interacting, you're interactive. They have the virtual reality now, and they're making it more and more real to where they're blurring the lines between virtual reality and what's actually real reality. So, we're going to check out this particular clip of a video game called The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division. And in this clip, it actually goes in and talks about Dark Winter. This video game came out, I believe, in it was actually I think a book, because Tom Clancy wrote these books, and then his books were made into video games. So I think around 2013, the book was made, and then the video game came out in 2016. But check this out and tell me everything we just spoke about, things we have spoken about. And if it doesn't give a good glimpse into the dark winter that we're seeing developing right before our very eyes. Okay, check this out.
In 2001, a real-world exercise tested the emergency response to a bioterror attack on the continental United States. The operation was called Dark Winter. Within just a few days, the simulation spiraled out of control. The operation predicted a rapid breakdown in essential institutions, civil disorder, and massive civilian casualties. Dark Winter has revealed how vulnerable we've become. Our lifestyle, our security, our safety depends on a delicate and unstable economy. We've created a system so complicated that we no longer understand how to control it. Oil, power, shipping, transport. We live in a complex world. And the more complex it gets, the more fragile it becomes. The system is built on a global supply chain that gets things where they're needed, just in time. We've created a house of cards. Remove just one, and everything falls apart. And what's fueling this system?
Money. Americans can spend $90 billion in a single day of shopping. Last year, 200 million people swarmed their local stores on November 23rd. We call that day Black Friday. Did you know that a flu virus can survive on the surface of a banknote for up to 17 days? One day there will be a pandemic. It could begin during the crush of Black Friday sales. A pathogen will jump from tainted banknotes to human skin, onto food, toys, children, and loved ones. By the time patient 0 feels the first sore throat, millions of people will already be infected. From this point, the breakdown will happen fast.
Day 1. Hospitals will reach capacity. Panic will strike. Day 2. Quarantine zones will be established. Resources will be rationed. Transport will go into lockdown. Day 3. International trade will stop. The oil will dry up. The stock market will collapse. Day 4. The power will fail. The shelves will be empty. The taps will run dry. And once hunger and despair take hold, people will do anything for survival. By day 5, everyone will be a potential threat.
In 2007, a new presidential directive was signed quietly into law. This maps out the government's response to a crisis, a plan to cope with a real dark winter. It is known as Directive 51. There are rumors of shadow agencies, sleeper cells, covert agents, but nothing can be confirmed.
Our complex world is primed for breakdown.
And once the chaos strikes,
there won't be resources to save us all.
The only question left is, what will it take to save what remains?
They said it was just the flu. But it turned out to be something else entirely. We followed our orders. Isolate the sick in a quarantine zone in the middle of Manhattan and stop the contagion from spreading. We started to lose count of casualties. We built a wall to contain the sick. But we lost control of the situation. And that's when the power went out. Rioting, looting, chaos. They ordered us to pull out all troops within a few hours. We left everything behind, in a zone saturated with contamination. We left our best equipment, our most powerful weapons, and the only hope for a cure. Few dare go over the wall. Fewer still come out. We call this place the Dark Zone.
It's hard to watch something you love destroy itself, to see it fall apart. Disaster always feels so distant, detached. Someone else's struggle in some faraway place. It's not until it's in our city, at our doors, that we realize how fragile we are. All of us. All of this.
No, baby, Steven, I'm here. Mommy's right here. Angie, no. Please. Sarah.
And when it hit, when it came down hard. And we fell. We buried ourselves in anger, fear, and the instinct to survive.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm just not strong enough.
And the real truth is, no one watched, no one saw, wanted to see. Tragedy is invisible. People turn away from it and run from it if they can. And it's hard knowing that you belong here. That your purpose lies amongst all this pain. But someone's gotta be there to pick it up. To push back. Put the first piece back together. Put us all back together.
When our city started to collapse, the dark side of humanity took control of the streets.
This city fell apart. It's crazy out here. Every man for himself. Survival of the fittest. You gotta take what you need in this world.
This world is our playground now, and no one's here to stop us. We got out of Rikers jail, and we ain't ever going back in the hole. It's all ours now. We're the new kings of these streets.
These streets must be sanitized. To save our city, we must burn away this disease. Every trace of it, no matter the cost.
Freedom is not a right. Liberty is not a given. This city needs an iron fist to restore order. There shall be no resistance. No matter who stands in our way.
There's always another way. Our mission is to save what remains. To save what's left of our city. We are the division.
Now, if there's any chance of putting the pieces of our city back together, then this is all up to you. When we first arrived, this place was destroyed. But over time, we can make it our home. From here, we launch countless missions across the city in search of others. Doctors, former cops, engineers, people who can help us rebuild the world. Out there, you'll need all your training and equipment. With every battle won, you'll become stronger. With every challenge met, you will gain power. Other agents have set up safe houses throughout the city. You'll need to team up with them and work together. We have to rely on each other's strengths to save what remains and give New York a fighting chance at something we thought was lost. Hope. You are here for a reason. Make no mistake. We are taking this city back.
Okay, so that was the trailer for the video game The Division, which so much was dropped in that trailer. I mean, the fact that they spoke about Dark Winter and just dealing with a virus and how it took down the whole society. It was going on in the wintertime. It happened, this game actually happening in New York. They built a wall, right? We talked about the movie Escape from New York. I mean, there's so much that they put out in their media that just shows what's coming. Just so much predictive programming. But I think at one part, what they say, they said it was just the flu, right? So it's always, a flu or, all these things that we have seen play out right now, real time with COVID. They've showed us in memorial throughout all the years with, all the different ways that they can tell us. Okay, so it's all right there. We can go back, look at it. But I want to now go into scriptures and talk about pray that your flight be not in the winter. And I want to look at it in scripture. We talked about David fleeing from Saul, fleeing from the contact tracers of his time. So is there anything new under the sun, them looking to have a dark winter? In the Division clip, it talked about possibly happening on a Black Friday. Black Friday is going into the winter time when everybody is, all these mass hordes and crowds of people are together. What better time to unleash a bioweapon or to say that all these people together caused an outbreak to spread? But let's go into the scriptures, because we can parallel this in times of antiquity. And I want to go into the Apocrypha. I want to go to 1 Maccabees. We're going to go through some scriptures, then we're going to come back to some more news, and then finish it out with scriptures. So we're going to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. And Brother Shamnawa Allah, if you could start at verse 10 for me.
All right. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, starting at verse 10. And there came out of him a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
So this is the kingdom of the Greeks. This is actually the first Edomite kingdom that ruled in this earth. Read on.
Verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathens that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
So that is the times we're going into now, where you're going to have those leaders, whether they're church leaders. We've seen this with churches, your entertainers, actors, musicians, athletes, the taskmasters, and the gatekeepers who are going to say, let us make a covenant with them. Because as they come down with all of these measures, and if you're not getting the vaccination and you want to be opposed to that, then you're going to be on the outside looking in. You're not going to have benefits or access. So they're going to look to get our people to make a covenant with the government, and that covenant will be the mark of the beast, taking the mark of the beast. Read on.
Verse 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so for herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen.
Okay, so this is all of what they're trying to get us to do. They're trying to get us to be in line with all the things, all the mandates that they're passing down. 6 feet apart, mask, test, vaccine, mark of the beast. Let's drop down to, and this is during the time of Maccabees. Okay, I'm going into the book of Maccabees during the times of Feast of Dedication to show you the same thing that was going on then is about to happen again. It's about to happen again, but this is going to be on a whole different level than what they've done in the past. But the blueprint is the same. And when you get a chance, read the whole, at least the first 4 chapters. I'm just skipping through it. There's a lot here, but for time's sake, I can't go through every scripture. I'm just trying to hit some key points here. Let's drop down to verse 37.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 37. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it.
Actually, start at verse 36.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 36. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel.
So they are setting up shop. Where are they setting up shop at right now, brothers and sisters, with this COVID situation? These churches, right? These churches are opening up their doors for COVID testing. So they're lying and setting up shop and waiting against the sanctuary in evil against our people. Now, during the times of Maccabees, we had the temple. Okay, so the Gentiles, the Greeks at the time, were planning and plotting and coming against us at our sanctuary. And they're going to do it again in these times. The places that we gather. And that's what the contact tracing is all about. They want to know, who are you gathering with? Who are you in contact with? Where are you gathering? So they can track and trace. Drop down to verse 39.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 39. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning. Her Sabbaths into reproach. Her honor into contempt.
Read on.
As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning.
Her excellency was turned into mourning. And we're going into the great mourning spoken of in Jeremiah 30, Jacob's trouble. That's what all this is about. COVID-19 means Jacob's trouble. Okay, they're coming against our Sabbaths. We can't gather. We had the Passover. It was going to be massive this year in Pittsburgh. Right before the Passover, it got shut down behind COVID. Okay. So they're looking to come against all the things that we could do to serve the Most High. And in exchange, they want us to serve them and their gods. Read on.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. All should be one people. You brothers and sisters seen this on your screen. You've seen this, you probably heard this. They're using this this particular, you want to call it a this mantra of we're all in this together. Even if we can't hold hands right now, we're all in this together, all coming together as one people. And you see how you have the different colors of people all holding hands as one. All right, that's the one world order. We read about it in the previous document we read, the World at Risk, when it talked about all the nations of the world being in one agreement when it comes to, international affairs. So this was done during the time of Maccabees with the Greeks, because the Greeks were going out and conquering the whole world and bringing everyone under their rule. And in these times, who is the Edomite power that's in control? America. So everyone is going to come under the authority. America is the forerunner. Okay, when the mark of the beast is unleashed, it's going to start in America and it's going to spread throughout the world. But it's going to start with America. America will start it, and then once it started it, there'll be no more need for America. But the 10 horns will then, take that power and continue that same one mind. Revelations Revelations chapter 17 said they all have one mind with the beast. Okay? So we're all in this together is what they're telling us. Verse 42.
First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 42. And everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathens agreed according to the commandment of the king.
All and everyone should leave his laws. So again, this is about causing all of us to try to come under their laws now. You have to wear the face mask. You have to be 6 feet apart. You have to get the test. You have to get the vaccine. In order to buy and sell, you must get the mark. Okay, they're bringing us into that one mind with the beast, or looking to bring us into one mind with the beast, the same way they did during the time of the Maccabees. And a good chapter to precept with First Maccabees chapter 1 is Second Ezra chapter 16. Second Ezra 16, because in the same way in Maccabees, it was made known who were the chosen. Second Ezra 16 says it's going to be the same in our time. It's going to be made known. You're going to have a similar situation where you're going to have those that were like Judas Maccabees, his brethren. Okay. It's going to be the same thing over again. Let's jump down to, there's so many scriptures here I want to get, but read verse 53.
First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 53. And drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for secure.
And drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor or for safety. Now, you wouldn't believe what time of the year this was that this happened. First Maccabees 1 and 54, read that.
Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the city of Judea on every side.
So what is the month of Caslu? We're going to get that. We're going to show that in scripture what month that is. But notice how they set up the abomination of desolation. So the abomination of desolation isn't a one-time event. The abomination of desolation is actually what's being revved up right now. And that's what's going to be Jacob's trouble. Okay? The siege and the war against the children of Israel to exterminate them is the abomination of desolation. To get us to go against our God to serve theirs. That's the times we're going into. Again. They tried it during the time of Maccabees. All right. But now the devil has a grid. He has a whole different level of technology. This is going to happen again. And this is the mind and the preparation that we should be planning right now, and not getting caught up into the other things that are happening in this world. We're going to talk about that later as well. Let's go to chapter 2. Again, there's so much here, but I'm just trying to hit some points. We still have a little bit more information and scriptures to go into. I wish I could break all this down, but Maccabees in itself is long chapters. It's a lot here. So, then shall it be made known who are my chosen, just like it was in Maccabees' time. Read 1 Maccabees 2:20.
1 Maccabees 2:20, and it reads, Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
Read on.
A higher forbid that we should forsake the law and ordinances.
So you're going to have those that are going to make a stand. All right. Christ said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, unto God what is God. So there's a point where, we still follow the laws of the land, as long as it doesn't conflict with the laws of our God. But when it comes to a point to where now the laws of the land are conflicting with the laws of our God, on the level like we're reading here in Maccabees, and the level that's soon to come upon us in these last days, we must look at Maccabees, right? Look at them and see how they stood in those times against Esau, against Edom. Read on.
Verse 22. We will not hearken to the king's words, to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left.
All right. Now let's drop down to just drop down to verse 27.
First Maccabees 2:27. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
Read on.
Verse 28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they ever had in the city.
So he and his sons fled into the mountains. Read.
Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there.
Same thing that happened during David's time, right? The contract tracers were out after David. David fled to the wilderness for safety. Maccabees, fast forward. All right. The Greeks were after our people. They had those that were righteous that said they're going to keep the covenant. They had to flee into the wilderness for safety. Read on.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 30. Both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because affliction increased sore upon them. Verse 31. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret place in the wilderness.
Read on.
They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day.
And this is where Christ said, pray that your flight be not on the Sabbath day. So they understand the chosen will be following the Sabbath day, and that is the time to attack the chosen. Because on the Sabbath day, what are we doing? We're gathering. We're coming together to serve the Most High. We're not thinking about what's going on in the world, but so we're, you can be caught off guard. Read on.
Verse 33. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live.
So you see how this is coming down to a situation of compromise, right? They're trying to get our people to compromise themselves to follow after the government and what the government would institute as law, to break the Sabbath day, to not keep the feast, to eat abominations, all these things. So we're coming back into that same time now of them coming against us. This is just the first wave. This is the first phase of it. Started right at Passover. Okay, but it's about to get cranked up. They're cranking things up now as we speak, going into this second wave. But I'm showing you what times past happened in history. We can learn from it, and we can also gain strength from it, seeing how our people handled it. What did they do? Did they compromise themselves? You had some that did. You had some that sold out. Some that sold themselves out to the Greeks, to the Grecian Empire. You had those that resisted and fled, and to live to fight another day. All right. So what time did this happen? What time period was this? What time of the year? We see them coming against them on a Sabbath day. Let's go to chapter 4. We talked about the month Caslu. When is the month Caslu? 1 Maccabees chapter 4 verse 52.
1 Maccabees chapter 4 verse 52, and it reads, Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu.
Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu. So Caslu is the 9th month. So a lot of people would look at that and say, well, the 9th month, that's September. But when you look just in the names themselves, Septe means 7. Octo for October means 8. And Nove for November means 9. So this is the end of November, right around the times of Thanksgiving. I know we talked about Black Friday. That was in that division clip there about Black Friday, something happening at that time. So that's the end of November, which is what? Going into wintertime. That was the time that they came against the children of Israel. And that's why Christ said, pray that your flight be not in the wintertime. Can you imagine these conditions where the heathen are coming against you to kill you because you won't take the vaccination, you won't get the test, you won't follow their laws, you won't go against your God, and you must flee. And it's wintertime. It's December. And you're trying to find a place to hide. You had to leave all. They said they left all their stuff to flee, to survive, to keep the covenant. Right? You don't know where you're trying to hide out at. What are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? So what level of faith must you have, and what level of wisdom must you have at this time to know to do these things? But notice that there was one who led. Right? You had Judas, Maccabees, his brothers, his father. So there were leaders of Israel that were leading this charge. It wasn't every man for himself, as they would want you to think or believe. It can't be every man for himself. There has to be leaders in place that can lead the he-goats. Okay, the strong are the people that will instruct many and lead, like Daniel said. But this is the 9th month, which March is the first month of the year. Okay, which would make November the 9th month, going into the wintertime, and they had to flee. So again, the heathen understand, and they're very tactical. Understand that Esau is a man of war. He's not going to engage you when it's nice and sunny outside and warm. All right. It's the secrets of war. He's going to engage you in the wintertime when you don't want to flee. And he's going to engage you on the Sabbath day to get you to break the Sabbath day. Now, we're going to prove that it was the wintertime. But let's read verse 59.
First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 59. Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Israel, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness. 90 seconds.
So, and give me one moment. I need to call back in the blog talk. But we see that this was called the Feast of Dedication, and it was kept. One moment here. On the 9th month and 25th day, the month of Caslu, Feast of Dedication. Now let's go to St. John, and let's go to St. John chapter 10. Give me one moment. I'm calling in. Blog Talk.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
And if you'd like to call in and you have a comment or a question, you can call in 515-605-9327. You have about 30 seconds to call in before you can't get in.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, and then press 1, and you can speak if you have something you'd like to say. But going on, so it said this is the Feast of Dedication, and it should be kept year in and year out in this particular time, the 9th month. So some people may say, well, it's September, the 9th month, September. Okay, well, let's see if this is September. St. John chapter 10 and verse 22.
St. John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem the Feast of Dedication, and it was winter.
And it was what?
And it was winter.
It was winter. So the Feast of Dedication, which was to be kept year in and year out on the 9th month, 25th day, which is the month of Caslu, was winter time. All right. So, and it's about to come full circle with it now, because at the beginning of this broadcast, somebody said, "Hey, you got to touch on what's going on in Minnesota." We're going to talk about that. Before we get to that, does anybody remember what happened in the winter of 2019? Winter of 2019. What was December of 2019? What were some major things that happened that month? I just want to see if anybody can. I mean, I'm talking about something huge happened. I'm looking at the comments here. Somebody said 201, not Event 201. This had to do with our people. Something when it comes to us dealing with black people. Let me pull it up here for y'all. See if y'all remember this. I'm pretty sure once I show you, you'll remember. NBCNewYork.com. What are black Hebrew Israelites? The group Jersey's. What are black Hebrew Israelites? The group Jersey City shooters were linked to. December 13th, 2019. Y'all remember this? Y'all remember these two characters? Whom they're saying that these two people were Jersey shooters that were linked to black Hebrew Israelite groups. Brothers and sisters, this happened during the time of the dedication. This was right around the time dealing with not necessarily falling in line with our Feast of Dedication, but with the Jewish Feast of Dedication. But this was the winter time that this attack or siege was being waged. Now, it may not have affected any of us directly, but they were writing up laws behind this happening. I think Trump made an executive order that the Jewish people are a nationality that can't be denied. So you can't deny them being a nationality, even though Jewish is not a nationality, it's a religion. Right? But Amalek, again, going back to Amalek, were attacking us. This is an attack. It may not be a physical attack, but it's an attack with the pen. Legislative defamation in the media, okay? Slandering us in the media, planting seeds that black Hebrew Israelites are violent, okay? All during the wintertime. Another thing that happened in the same month, same wintertime. Y'all remember this guy? WGNTV.com. Suspect in New York Hanukkah stabbings referenced Nazi culture in his journal. Authorities said. Let's scroll down. It says, in Thomas's home, about 40 minutes away from the site of the attack, investigators found a journal that referred to Adolf Hitler and Nazi culture on the same page as drawings of a Star of David and swastika, according to the complaint. One entry in the journal said Hebrew Israelites took from the powerful people, Ebenoid Israelites, and questioned why people mourn for anti-Semitism when there is a Semitic genocide. The criminal complaint said Ebenoid Israelites appears to be a reference to the black Hebrew Israelite movement. So then they linked this guy, same wintertime, against a black man who they were saying is linked with black Hebrew Israelites. So you have to look at the timing that this is happening right in around the time of Feast of Dedication in the wintertime. This is a telltale sign. And what we're going into now, and what they're calling a dark winter. And I seen somebody in the comment, which I forget, I think it was C. Foster that made the comment in the message box there, the chat room, said it's dark a play on words. Is dark actually implying that when it comes to black people, is that why it's being referenced as a dark winter? That's interesting food for thought. Black Friday, is that had to do because blacks are the biggest consumers and spenders when it comes to Christmas and in general, the biggest commodity? But all in all, we must understand that they're showing us that they're the same people during the time of Maccabees that attacked us in the wintertime. Okay, 2019 was just getting legislation put in place, but it's also planted seeds, and it's them showing their hand that they're looking to engage us again in the wintertime. As Christ warned, pray that our flight be not. And now they're talking about going into a dark winter. Speaking about what's going on right now. This is on CNN.com. It says George Floyd protests spread nationwide. So you have what's going on right now, these protests in regards to a black man who was supposedly killed by the police. He died later in police custody. He wasn't dead on the streets, but he died later behind some closed doors, but nobody's seen him die. And now we have protests that are spreading nationwide, not just in Minnesota. Now, mind you, this is all coming in the midst of them opening things back up after the first initial lockdown of COVID. So no sooner than they open things back up, boom, this happens. And have you ever wondered, brothers and sisters, why every time that there are racial tensions in America, it's always happening in and around summertime? Usually, those are when the big events happen, are in the summertime. The Watts riots, I mean, you name it. It's always in the summertime when it's hot to get things stirred up and riled up. Check this out. Governor declares curfew for Minneapolis and St. Paul through the weekend. That's in Minnesota. White House on lockdown due to D.C. protests. So now you have people in D.C. protesting behind this, and they had to lock the White House down. Protesters in Atlanta mount CNN sign and raise Black Lives Matter flag. We've talked about Black Lives Matter before in the past. All right. Who is running Black Lives Matter? Who are these groups that are supposed to represent us? What do they stand on? What values and principles do they stand on? And who are their founders? Who are their leaders? That's the question I would ask behind these groups. Check this out. Protesters smashed windows and blocked roads on 101 freeway in San Jose. That's happening in California. Disturbances break out during protests in D.C. Hundreds gather in downtown Houston to protest George Floyd's death. So we're seeing these things happening all over America right now. And this is not the only event that's happening. You have other events that have happened. You had, again, the guy that supposedly died in February by two white men. They was gunned down in the street. I forget his name, but that event that happened. And all these things are happening that happened clear back in February, but it wasn't brought out into the media forefront until right now, in the midst of this reopening of a supposed reopening of everything. I'm going to tell you right now, brothers and sisters, we live in a reality of psychological operations. I just went through the dark winter psychological operations that they've been doing, these simulations and all of these things. This is just another facet of their psychological operations, pitting race against race, pitting one race of people against the police. Any place that they can cause division and cause a divide. There was a report that the Minnesota chief of police came out in Minneapolis and said that the people that are burning down his city aren't from Minnesota. They're out of towners. He don't know where they're from. Okay, so you have what you would call agent provocateurs that come in, because when all these things were happening, they burnt down a police station in Minnesota, and the police stood down. Why are the police standing down in these events and allowing the destruction to happen? Because you know why? As we've been reading this whole broadcast, and as we've talked over the many years, order out of chaos. problem, reaction, solution. Trump talked about putting military on the streets for the vaccine, to administer the vaccine. These instances only allow them room to now bring forth more military in these cities, as if COVID wasn't enough reason. Okay. Now, we move to the next article here. This comes out Breitbart.com. Ice Cube, how many cops have to kill black Americans before we strike back? Let me tell you something. Ice Cube, isn't he an actor? He's an actor. He's not a gangster. Okay, he's not a drug dealer. He's not from the hood. He's not from the ghetto. Okay? He has his own movie production company. If he is against them, how did he get his own movie production company? How is it he's in all these movies and he has all this great success? Okay? He is there to incite the chaos. He's there to emotionally get us charged. To emotionally get us charged up in these moments that will ultimately lead to our destruction. Will lead to them having an excuse to putting military and coming after us. All right. Let me show you something else here. Just to show you that what I'm saying, I'm not just saying this. Let me see if I can find this. Check this out. NPR.org. Trump says he spoke with Floyd's family, understands hurt and pain of community. Check out Trump's tweet. It says, this is one of his tweets. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. So again, Trump is an actor. He had his show, The Apprentice. Here it is. The mayor of Minneapolis is a Democrat. And we're in campaign season. So now it's the left, the radical left mayor. So now you have the Democrat-Republic divide being waged. Dividing the people. At the same time talking about sending in military. Check this out. Second tweet. These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd. And I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. So this is what they want, is to send the military in. And these instances give them the right or the justification in the eyes of people to send the military in. And nobody will ask any questions because the police, they can't handle the situation according to them. But the police are standing down. The police are letting it happen. Who are these groups like Black Lives Matter that are riling our people up, like Ice Cube riling our people up to get them out in the streets? Because I guarantee you, we might not be the one bringing the matches to the fire. We might not be the ones that cause the spark, but we'll dang sure bring the gasoline. So you have these agents that come in, like Black Lives Matter, like other agents that come in and start looting and getting our people roused up. And listen, when our people see people looting, they're just looking for opportunity. They see listen, nobody's guarding this store, and people are coming out with stuff. I'm finna go in and get some stuff. That's what the poor are gonna do. Our people, look, we the supplanter. We are opportunists. That's what we're going to do. We're not the ones to go and start just randomly out doing these things, but we'll dang sure, go along if everybody else is doing it. So no, we're not starting these movements and these things. We're not the ones starting the looting. We're participating in it, but we didn't start it. These powers that be are waging these psyops. They're starting these things. All right, they're getting these things started. Because now it's even more of a target on Jacob's back. We're already the main carriers of COVID according to them. Now we're looting, right, worldwide. So yes, if you ask me, the whole so-called death of George Floyd and all these other guys is staged and fake psychological operations. But regardless if it's real or fake, doesn't matter. What matters is what is going to come about all of this. Even if it was real for a reason. All this time, you haven't seen any of this stuff happen under Trump. Why now? Obama pops back up on the scene, right? COVID happens. Boom, now this is happening. Okay, all this divide, one person against another. So, let's now go to the scriptures. Because all this is leading up to a dark winter, brothers and sisters. All this is leading up to Jacob's trouble. How must we operate in these times? Okay? Should we get involved with these things that are happening? What does the scriptures, what does Christ tell us? And the scriptures tell us how to be in these times. Matthew 24, let me get it. Matthew 24, verse 7. Brother Shamnawala, are you there? Maybe you're on mute. Yeah, if you could read Matthew 24 and 7 for me.
All right. St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, and it reads, "For the nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famine and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places."
So let's take a look at this right here. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Right now, we're pretty much seeing everything that we are reading here play out right now, real time, with what's going on in Minneapolis and and nationwide with these particular incidences happening where black men are supposedly dying. You're seeing nation rising against nation. There shall be famines. They're killing off the animals now because they're saying the stores can't get the food in quick enough, so the animals have to be euthanized. Crops are being left to rot because there's nobody to gather the crops. And the stores, they can't handle getting the crops to the stores in time. That's a famine. Pestilences. We read earlier in Operation Dark Winter that smallpox was one of the most deadliest pestilential diseases. And we're dealing with COVID right now. Pestilences, whether real or fake, doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is what is being said, the narrative, and what is going to come about everything that they're saying. and earthquakes in diverse places. So right now we don't have earthquakes that I'm aware of that are happening like that, even though they've happened in the past. So what you can expect, because we're getting to a place, brothers and sisters, where all these things are going to be happening all at once. It's going to be so many things happening at once. The whole world is going to be shaken. So don't be surprised in the midst of this. Look for natural disasters. Look for a natural disaster. Look for an earthquake or a tsunami. Expect these things to come. Because right now, the way this world is going, everything is speeding up. Operation Warp Speed. And if you don't have a solid, strong foundation, when all these things are happening at once, you're going to get swept up. You're going to get swept up. So when we see these things happening, George Floyd or this black man or that black man being killed, should we get out there and protest? Should we get out there and get involved? Well, let's see what the scriptures say. Let's go to Galatians chapter 5. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's very clear, and it should be very clear. It's clear to me in these times where our minds need to be and what we should be preparing for. Galatians 5 and start at verse 19.
Galatians chapter 5 verse 19. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies. Verse 21. Envyings, murders, drunkenness, reveling, and such like.
Revelings. Revelings are rioting. That's rioting. That's getting out and getting out in riots. Do you not know that that's the works of the flesh? And it also links in with wrath and strife and seditions and variance and hatred. All of those things. So getting out there and involved in all of that, you're operating in the works of the flesh. And we're going to get more on that rioting here in a moment. It goes deep. It goes really deep. Read on.
Verse 21. Envyings, murders, drunkenness, reveling, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Ohio.
So, operating in the works of the flesh, you will not make it to the kingdom of heaven. And in these times, getting out there in the midst of this chaos and confusion, listen, now with the military out there, who knows what could happen to you? You go out and don't come back home. And then they got the whole COVID card they could play. Well, while we got you, let's go ahead and take you down and test you for COVID. So if people want to get out there in the streets, all you want, it's the works of the flesh. Let's go to Romans 13. And this is just going into how in these times, where should our mind be? How should we be operating? Romans 13 and verse 11.
Romans chapter 13 verse 11. And that knowing the times, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed.
Do we not know, brothers and sisters, with all these things happening right now, that it is high time to awake out of sleep? That our salvation is nearer than we believe? We don't have time to be out getting engaged and entangled with the affairs of this life, because they're looking to kill us all, starting with Jacob. Read on.
Romans chapter 13, verse 12. The night is far spent, the days is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light.
That works of darkness is talking about the works of the flesh. Got to cast those works of the flesh off. Cast them out. Put on the armor of light. That's the fruit of the Spirit. That's how we must walk and operate in these times. Ephesians 6 and 12, we wrestle not with flesh and blood. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. All right. You must know how to operate spiritually in these times. And have wisdom to be able to survive and see the next day. Read verse 13.
Verse 13. Let us walk honestly, as in the day, not in rioting.
Not in what?
Not in rioting.
Not in rioting. All right. How can you be a rioter but say you were in the gospel shoes of peace? Isn't the gospel shoes of peace one of the part of the armor of the Most High? You can't be in peace and rioting at the same time. So Paul said, let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting. And what else?
Not in rioting and drunkenness.
And drunkenness. That's talking about the works of the flesh. Being drunk in your lusts. Being drunk in your emotions and in your flesh. Read.
Not in chambering and wantingness. Not in strife and envying. Verse 14. But put ye on the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, and make not provisions for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof.
Make not provision for the flesh, the works of the flesh. Because, yeah, it's easy to see these things and get angry. But that's your flesh. The scripture says, be angry, but sin not. So your flesh would want you to go out there and maybe be violent and cause destruction and get out there and rally with people and all of that. But the scripture says not to do that. That's rioting. That's rioting, especially in these times. Let's go to Peter. And 2 Peter chapter 2. And let's start at verse 9.
The book of 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. The Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished.
Read.
But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness, and despise government.
But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government. Now, a lot of people would see that and think that's talking about the world government. And while in some instances that it is, mainly it's talking about the Most High's government. Again, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, unto God what is God's. So when you're out there rioting and doing all those things, you're breaking all kind of laws. When the scripture tells us if it be possible, all that lieth within you, be at peace with all men. So there are peaceful ways to protest or to speak against the ills and wrongs that are happening. Okay, but it's not to be done with the flesh. Okay, we still have to respect government. Even Yeshua respected Caesar's government enough not to go at war against them on a physical, carnal level. He was out doing the work. He was baptizing and getting people ready for this, for the kingdom to come. He wasn't going and protesting and rioting and doing all those things against Caesar. And you don't think that it wasn't our people dying back then at the hands of the Roman government? But you do have them that are in their flesh that will get out there that despise government. And don't think just because, they despise the U.S. government or whatever other government, they don't despise the government of the church too. Okay. They despise, if it's a church telling them, the right thing and righteousness, they're going to despise that government too. These are people that they have an issue with dominion, authority, and order. And that's what I was saying, is that there's nothing wrong with righteous authority, righteous order, whether it's world government or it is church government, as long as it's righteous. But you have those who just oppose it altogether. And Peter's going to talk about them. Okay, they despise government. What else?
2 Peter chapter 2, verse 10. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness, and despise government, presumptuous are they, self-willed.
Self-willed, meaning do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law that they follow. They're doing whatever they want to do, because that's what their flesh is leading them to do. Whatever their flesh say do, they do. Self-willed, read.
They are not afraid to speak evil of dignities.
They are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. It doesn't matter who it is that's in a dignified place of authority. They'll speak evil against anyone. Okay? That's the mindset of these that we're reading about, that despise government. Read verse 11.
Whereas angels, which are greater in power, and might bring not railing accusations against them before the Most High.
Read.
But these are natural brute beasts.
Natural brute beasts. Look at how our people are in the streets rioting. Is that not animalistic? Because they're in their flesh, and that's the level they want you at. They want you operating as an animal, because once you're operating like that, the devil has you. Okay? He now has accusation against you. And the Most High will take his hands off and say, they operate in the work of the flesh. I got no protection for them. And then you'll see a person fall. It's going to tell you that. Read.
2 Peter 2 and 12. But these are natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed.
Made to be taken and destroyed. So you want to get out in these streets and riot and get out there, you're going to get taken and destroyed. Christ said, be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. So this is what they want our people to do. And this is why they have the Ice Cubes and all these guys that are, riling our people up to get them out there to get destroyed. Read.
Speak evil of the things that they understand not.
Speak evil of the things they understand not. Do these people know about psychological operations and how the government will use these particular scenarios to further come after us and demonize us? Do they understand that? They don't understand it. They're speaking evil. All the government this, the government that. Not to say that the government isn't coming against us. But you're being psychologically manipulated and baited into a trap through a guy that's probably sitting somewhere on an island laughing and watching everybody riot behind his supposed death. Because he's a Freemason in with it, in it with all the rest of them to fool us. And whether that's the case or not, even if it's real, there's a bigger agenda at work here. There's a bigger purpose and mission. Okay? Speak evil of things they understand not. Read.
And shall utterly perish in their own corruption.
And shall utterly perish in their own corruption. Because they're operating in what corruption? The works of the flesh. The works of the flesh is what corrupts us, brothers and sisters. And this is why we've always told our members not to get out there and get involved with any of these protests. You're setting yourself up for failure. Now, what should we be doing in this time with all these things happening? Should these things be our focus, or are they a distraction? Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 2. Actually, before we go to Zephaniah 2, let's go back to Matthew 24. Actually, Salakia, excuse me. Let's finish out 2 Peter. I want to get one more verse there. Actually, a few more verses. Verse 13.
Okay. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 13. And shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime.
They that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime. What did we just read from Paul in Romans 13? The night is far spent, the day is at hand. So because the day is at hand, you now want to riot in the day? What day is that? That day is the day of our redemption, the day of salvation, the day of Christ's return, and the kingdom of heaven being here. That's the day we're coming into. And upon his return, you don't want to be found in unrighteousness or in your flesh. To riot, to count it pleasure to riot in this time. Read.
Sports they are in blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you.
And these same people will look to want to have you, come around and hang out, right? Be ye not unequally yoked with non-believers. So what company are you keeping? Are you keeping company with these unrighteous, servants of the enemy? Read.
2 Peter chapter 2, verse 14. Having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart they have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children.
So this is all of what's going on with these people that get themselves out there. And a lot of them are deceived. Okay, a lot of them are out there, they're just deceived. They don't have any guidance. But this is what you can find in their zone. They cannot cease from sin. Okay, exercising covetous practices, where you would go out and steal and riot and take stuff that's not yours. That's covetous exercising covetous practices. If you can't buy it, you can't afford to buy it, you shouldn't have it. That's coveting. Cursed children. And we know that's talking about us. Read.
Which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the sons of Bozor, who love the wages of unrighteousness.
Have forsaken the right way. So we should be looking and seeking the right way in these times. That is a distraction. That's a trap that's going to pull and suck you in to a black hole you cannot escape from. Let's go to Matthew 24. We're going to go to Matthew 24 and then Zephaniah chapter 2, and that'll be the end of the information for tonight. But I'm just trying to paint a picture for brothers and sisters to let you know and see what time we're in, what's coming down the pipe, and we don't have time to get distracted to play games. Matthew 24, start at verse 15.
St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Read.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Read on.
Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house.
Read on.
Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes.
So that's the times we're coming into, brothers and sisters. And the reason why we can't get caught up in these things that try to emotionally pull us in, because of psychological operations, because it's all psychological and spiritual from here on out. And if you don't have it psychologically and spiritually together, you will be deceived and you will get sucked in. It says, when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. This is the same thing we read of in 1 Maccabees. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. All right. They fled into the wilderness. They fled into the mountains. They didn't go back in and get their clothes. This is all of what Christ is saying here happened before. He said it. But then he said it was going to happen after he left. He said it would happen at the times of the temple being destroyed. And he said it would happen again in the end before he returned. So we must learn from the things of the past so we don't repeat them. So when we see these signs that he told us what will be happening and going on, get ready to flee. That's what we should be doing. Getting your bug out bag ready and together. They gave us we thank the Most High for this COVID thing, because it gave us a little, time to see, okay, they didn't do it right away, but they're going to do it. So now we have a little bit of time to get ourselves ready for the next move of what we need to do. That's spiritually get our houses in order, do the physical preparations we need to do to get ready for the next phase. That's what Christ said do. When you see these things, do it. You go into the Josephus, you see our people didn't listen, and you see what happened to them. Read verse 19.
St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 19. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days.
And woe unto them that are with child and give suck in those days. In the book of the Josephus, those that didn't listen and were surrounded by the Romans, when Amalek came in and surrounded them, what did they do with their children? They had no food. They resorted to cooking their babies as food. Okay? Because they didn't listen. They didn't take the preparations and they didn't take heed to the signs to flee. Okay, they got caught up in the things that was going on in Jerusalem at that time, the politics of Jerusalem, versus seeing the signs of what Christ warned about and told them what to do when you see these signs. They were comfortable. Okay, so we're now given these same signs. We're given this wisdom, this information that's coming out, that's exposing their plans and their agendas and what's coming down the pipe, so that we don't repeat the same thing that our ancestors did, but learn from those like Judas and his brethren, Judas Maccabees. Learn like David, who fled into the wilderness. Let's finish out with Zephaniah. Zephaniah chapter 2, and if we would have kept reading in Matthew 24, it goes right back into pray that your flight be not in the winter nor on the Sabbath day. No new thing under the sun. The same blueprint will be used over and over again. Why? Because my people perish for a lack of knowledge. We don't know our history. We don't know what happened in history. Therefore, we repeat it, and our children suffer. The Most High said, I will reject your children. You reject me, I will reject your children. But those that understand history, understand prophecy, okay, will make provisions to get out of the way. And that's what we're about to read in Zephaniah chapter 2 and start at verse 1.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather yourselves together, O nation not desired.
So the Most High said, gather ourselves together, O nation not desired. let's see. Did he tell us to gather ourselves together to go and riot and destroy cities and take righteousness and vengeance in our own hands against the government? Let's see if that's what he said we should do in these times. Read.
Verse 2. Before the day decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Most High come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you.
Before the decree bring forth. So he didn't tell us to get out and gather together with Black Lives Matter and riot and do all these things. He said gather together before the Most High sends his judgment. His judgment. And his anger. We can be angry all we want, but what about his anger on the whole world? So he said, gather together before his decree come forth. What else did he say? Verse 3.
Seek ye the Most High, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgments. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Most High's anger.
He said, seek rioting, seek revelings, seek drunkenness, seek wrath, seek strife. No. He said, seek righteousness. Gather together, O nation not desired. Seek righteousness and seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. So we want to be hid in these times. What does it mean to be hid? 1, not be in sin. 2, get ready to flee off the grid. Because if you're off the grid, you're hid. You can't be seen by the enemy. Okay? The devil is looking for Jacob. You want to be hid in this time. So when the Most High brings his judgment down, you're protected. And I know I said that was the last verse, but I forgot about Revelations 18. And this should be the end. Revelations 18:1 and read down to verse 4.
With his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, the whole of every foul spirit, in a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
So America is fallen. This place is finished. There's no fighting, there's no rioting, there's no trying to get justice. All them days are over. And it's become a place that's just, unrelenting sin. Unlimited and infinite sin. What else? Read.
Verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
So what did the Most High tell us to do when these things happen? Come out of her, my people, meaning get ready to flee. That's where our mindset should be with these things happening. Not getting involved, but getting ready to get off grid and get out the way. Because those people that are out there, there's nothing you can do to help them. Okay, those people that are getting caught up, casualties of war. Read verse 8.
Revelations 18:8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, and mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her.
Read on.
And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning.
Last verse.
Verse 10. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
So her plagues shall come in 1 day, and her judgment shall come in 1 hour. That's your Operation Warp Speed. Okay, they're speeding up the judgment for America. It's time. They're about to bring it. So this is not the end of it. What we're seeing right now this is just the next thing with what's going on in Minnesota and across the country with these cops, and tomorrow it'll be something else. Okay, who knows what it'll be? But at this point, it's Operation Warp Speed. They've told you what they're going to do. They've told us for years, for decades, for centuries, their plans. The Bible has told us in prophetic sense what's coming. It's told us in past history what they've done. And now it's up for us to utilize that wisdom to now put ourselves in position to receive the kingdom of heaven. Will you be like Lot's wife and be caught up in this world? And your heart be in Sodom to where you can't let go. And last but not least, just want to touch on something real quick. This was an executive order that came out yesterday on preventing online censorship. And basically what it is and what Trump was saying is that you have social media that's censoring people from being able to speak and have freedom of speech. But I'm going to tell you right now, this in itself is very concerning, because the First Amendment, and we had a broadcast, they are censoring the truth. When the First Amendment says it's freedom of speech, and then the president has to come out and put an executive order on something that's already there in law, that already tells you, or should tell you, you don't have freedom of speech. And that all this is smoke and mirrors. Because if this was true, then they should go and YouTube should actually unblock the video that they blocked that we did on artificial reality. That video has been blocked. Other videos that have been blocked, the church has done. Are they going to now go back and unblock all these things that they've blocked? Okay, so this is just a smoke screen. This is to make you think you have freedom of speech and that you're going to get freedom of speech. When they actually want you to speak your mind so they can know where you stand. That's just giving you confidence to now, hey, just rattle it off online thinking that you're protected. So this is a smoke screen. All right, so I'll leave you all with this right here. And we'll end the broadcast with that last piece of information. And wasn't able to get to Blog Talk. I don't know if we have any callers in there. We have a caller, but not in the queue. So I hope brothers and sisters were edified with the information. I know it was a lot of information. Again, so much trying to get it out, trying to articulate it all. It's so much going on right now. But hopefully, if nothing else, at least the scripture part of what we must do in these times, and not get caught up, because the devil is setting up snares, traps. And if you get caught slipping, you're going to get caught in one of those traps. And once you're in it, you're in the Most High's hands at that point. With his mercy and grace is running out as we get closer to the end. So get your bug out bags ready. All right, get yourself prepared. I'm not saying we're fleeing today. I'm not saying we're fleeing tomorrow, but I'm just saying get your mind ready. Okay, get yourself righteously righteous minded. in these times, to operate in total righteousness, operate in the total spirit of the Most High. And in that spirit will you be led and guided through this great tribulation storm that we're going into. I would go through the comments, but I know there's a lot. Y'all brothers and sisters have a lot to say. There's a lot of people in the chat room, so it's hard to keep up. But link in with your body. Whatever body is locally in your area, link in. If there's a body in your area, if there's not a body in your area, pray to the Most High for that body. Pray for guidance to be led through these times. But stay linked in the meantime. You can stay linked in to the main lessons, A Gathering 144, the Hebrew and Bible Academy. And if we're here to do this broadcast again, we're going to probably do bi-weekly broadcast here unless something very important happens. But time is short. There's a lot of work to be done. And like you've seen the censorship, so one day, hey, it's all going to be over. These platforms are going to be done. And only thing you'll be left with is whatever you built in reality, in real time. The only way you're going to have connection to this grid is through the mark of the beast. Okay, so right now is the time to make the choice on which side you stand on.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay, we got to make our mind up. Can't be lukewarm. Either you're on the side of being off grid, or you're on the side of being fully connected into this grid. Okay, so yeah, I seen a lot of people asking about the song in the beginning. That's actually an old, at least 7 or 8 years old. A brother had made 2 songs or parts with Elder Ricard speaking with music behind it. I don't know if his YouTube channel's still up. I don't even know what it is, but it's uploaded on Blog Talk, so I don't even have it. It's something that's been on Blog Talk all these years, and I play it. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I don't know what that is. Get your passports while you can. If you're not baptized, get yourself in position to be baptized. Once you get baptized, stay in the fold. Don't stray off. You get baptized and stray off, it won't be good for you. You'll be a sheep amongst wolves out there. So I pray y'all have a blessed Sabbath, blessed week, and unless something pertinent comes out between now and next Friday, I'll see you all here the following Friday, 2 weeks from now, if it be the Most High's will. Bless you all. Stay armored up, stay prayed up, and be wise as serpents, harmless as doves in these times. Shabbat shalom. Bless y'all.